The world always moved too slow for Sonic. The grass whispered beneath his steps, the air bent around him, and the horizon was never far enough. Green Hill Zone shimmered under the morning sun, the loops glinting like golden halos in the distance. He felt the world pulse beneath his feet, every step syncing with the rhythm of the planet's heartbeat. To run wasn't just movement, it was music, freedom, and the purest form of being alive. He darted across the rolling hills, leaving trails of blue energy behind. The rings chimed as he passed, a chorus of metallic echoes in the wind. Birds scattered in his wake. The sky stretched endlessly, painted in hues of turquoise and gold. Sonic laughed, not because of joy alone, but because this speed, was proof that the universe still had beauty to offer. And then the sound stopped. Not faded, stopped. No wind, no birds, no hum of the earth. The world froze like a still image, every color sharpened into silence. Sonic slowed instinctively, skidding to a halt as dust hung suspended in the air around him. The waterfall nearby froze mid-cascade, droplets of water glittering like scattered diamonds. His quills crackled with static. Something was wrong. He looked up. Above Green Hill, the sky fractured. At first, it looked like lightning, a flash of silver tearing through the clouds. But then it didn't fade. It stayed. A jagged scar of light pulsing like a heartbeat. Around it, the colors of the sky bled into each other, blue, white, gold, twisting into a whirlpool of time itself. Sonic blinked. Whoa, okay, that's new. The air felt heavy, bending toward that scar. Pebbles began to rise, caught in invisible waves. Even the rings floating nearby shimmered and vanished, their glow collapsing inward. Time wasn't just slowing, it was collapsing. He took a cautious step forward, boots touching ground that seemed to hum beneath him. Then the world screamed. A deafening sound, metal grinding against eternity, echoed from the fracture. From the heart of the rift, something emerged, a fragment of silver metal, spinning wildly, covered in shifting symbols, clocks, gears, spirals, languages no one had ever written. Sonic barely had time to react before it crashed into the ground before him, burying itself into the earth. Cracks spread out like spiderwebs, glowing bright white. Sonic shielded his eyes. Hey, who's throwing junk through my sky? The ground trembled. The fragment pulsed once, twice, then released a blinding surge of energy. Sonic's world vanished. He fell through light. The sensation wasn't falling, it was unraveling. The world around him stretched into streaks of color, blue, silver, violet, spiraling endlessly. He saw flashes of places that weren't his own. A city of glass towers, men in armor, gods with lightning hammers, red capes fluttering in storms of fire. He recognized none of it, but every image felt close, as if drawn from dreams forgotten by reality. Okay, this is definitely not Green Hill anymore, he muttered as the light bent and folded around him. His own body blurred, flickering between moments. Here, gone, here again. And then impact. He crashed onto something solid, not grass, not stone. It felt like metal, but alive. The surface shimmered beneath him, reflecting not the sky, but shifting fragments of time, moments frozen mid-motion, a city collapsing in slow motion, a child laughing forever, a comet that never finished falling. Sonic stood up, brushing off invisible dust. The silence here was absolute, yet it had weight, like the pause before thunder. The air glowed faintly blue, rippling as if submerged underwater. In the distance, colossal gears turned soundlessly, their teeth biting into the fabric of space. "What is this place?" His voice didn't echo. It just dissolved. Then came the voice. "Welcome, Sonic of Mobius. You have crossed the threshold." He spun around. No one. The words came from everywhere and nowhere, carried by the pulse of the air itself. "You have outrun your fate once too often. Now you race against time itself." A faint blue aura flickered around his body. His heartbeat synced with the strange rhythm of this place. He clenched his fists, eyes narrowing. "Whoever you are, I don't do cryptic. Show yourself." The ground shifted, not breaking but rearranging. Segments of the metallic plane rotated and rose, forming circular platforms, spiraling outward like a gigantic clock face. Sonic jumped back as one lifted beneath him, propelling him upward. The air rushed around, thin but electric. He looked down and saw the endless expanse, a realm of shattered timelines, each fragment a different reality frozen mid-death. A faint shimmer moved along the horizon, a streak of silver, faint but fast. Sonic squinted. Someone was moving across the distant platforms, so fast it left after images behind. "So, not the only speedster, huh?" He grinned. "Guess this day just got interesting." He began to run. At first the air resisted, thick like syrup. But then his energy built, the world bending to him again. Blue arcs burst from his shoes, tearing through the metallic ground like comets. Every step echoed like thunder. The sky fractured further, reacting to his motion, scattering shards of light in his wake. The silver streak in the distance moved faster. Sonic grinned wider. "All right, race it is." He accelerated. The realm responded, platforms rearranging, time fragments aligning into a colossal track across eternity. Below him, glimpses of other worlds flashed, cities burning, heroes falling, universes collapsing into white light. He ignored them. All that mattered was the race, but something about the silver energy ahead was different. It wasn't raw or chaotic like his. It was clean, calculated, almost surgical. Each motion precise, cutting through the time stream with intent. Whoever this was, they weren't just fast. They were trained. Sonic pushed harder, his form blurring into streaks of blue lightning. The gap closed, 10 meters, 5, 3, then the world folded again. The silver streak vanished. Sonic skidded to a stop, sparks flying under his shoes. The ground beneath him cracked, rippling outward. He turned his head, scanning the horizon. Nothing. And then, a whisper of wind behind him. He barely turned before a silver blur flashed past his side, almost brushing his arm. The gust sent him spinning. He landed on one knee, grinning even as his pulse raced. "Okay," he said, standing up, smirking. "You're good." The air ahead shimmered. From the distortion stepped a figure. Tall, lean, wrapped in sleek silver and blue armor. His hair glowed faintly white under the strange light, his eyes sharp, calculating. He looked human, but carried himself like someone who had lived through worlds. "You're fast," the man said simply. His accent clipped, precise. But speed without control is chaos. Sonic tilted his head. "And who are you supposed to be, some kind of cosplayer?" The man's eyes narrowed slightly. "They call me Quicksilver." The name hit Sonic like a pulse. He didn't know it, but it resonated, like two tuning forks vibrating to the same note. Blue sparks danced between them, as if the universe itself recognized the symmetry. Sonic crossed his arms, cocky grin returning. "Cool name. But you should know, there's only room for one fastest thing alive, Quicksilver didn't smile. We'll see. And then the clock behind them struck. A sound, deep, resonant, ancient, rippled through the void. The metallic surface beneath their feet rearranged again, forming a vast circular arena. Symbols of time and infinity burned into the air. The edges dropped away into nothingness. Above, the fractured sky revealed a single, immense eye. Mechanical, watchful, unblinking. Contestants detected, the voice thundered from everywhere. The race begins when the chronal bell tolls. Sonic and Quicksilver both turned upward, instinctively crouching like runners at a starting line. Energy coiled around them, blue for Sonic, silver for Quicksilver, each flickering like opposing storms. "Guess we're doing this," Sonic said. Quicksilver nodded once. "Try to keep up." The bell rang, and the world exploded into motion. The two streaks, blue and silver, shot forward across the metallic plane. Space shattered around them as they ran. Time warped, reversed, accelerated, every second twisting under their combined velocity. The sky fractured into mirrors of alternate realities. Flashes of Avengers, flashes of Mobius, flashes of empty voids where no life had ever formed. Sonic felt the exhilaration surge through him. Every stride was a rebellion against stillness. Every spark of energy felt alive. But as he pushed faster, he noticed something. The world wasn't keeping up. The edges of his vision began to blur, melting into streaks of white. The arena itself was breaking under the strain of their speed. He heard Quicksilver's voice over the roaring energy. "Stop! You'll tear the chronal field apart." Sonic just laughed. "What's life without a little chaos?" The sky screamed. The arena cracked open, exposing the void beneath. Endless black threaded with silver veins of time. For a moment, both runners were suspended midair, frozen between seconds. And then, silence again. The light dimmed. The fragments of the arena drifted slowly, glowing like dying stars. Sonic floated weightless, breathing hard. Across from him, Quicksilver steadied himself, eyes narrowing. "You're reckless," he said, voice echoing through the broken realm. "Do you even know what this place is?" Sonic smirked. "Nope, but I'm guessing it's not Disneyland." Before Quicksilver could respond, the air above them rippled again, and the massive eye blinked. "Observation complete," the voice said. "Subject synchronization, 87%. Prepare next phase." The fragments of the arena began to rearrange once more, aligning into new patterns. A second pulse of light washed over them, restoring gravity. Sonic landed lightly, crouched, sparks still dancing across his gloves. He looked up, a grin spreading again despite the chaos. "Guess round one's over," he said. Quicksilver adjusted his stance, every muscle taut. "Then prepare yourself. This isn't a race anymore." Sonic's grin widened, his eyes gleaming. "Good. I was getting bored." Far above them, unseen beyond the fractured sky, the Chronarch watched, a silhouette wrapped in the gears of eternity, his clockwork heart ticking in impossible rhythm. "Two speeds, two fates, one inevitable convergence," he whispered. "Let the timeline burn." The blue and silver lights flared once more, streaking across the endless void. And the arena of the impossible roared to life. For most men, a second is an instant. For Pietro Maximoff, a second is an empire. He lived inside those narrow, invisible kingdoms, the folds between heartbeats, the corridors of time that ordinary people could never enter. To him, the world was an orchestra, perpetually behind tempo, always missing the beat. He had learned to move through it like a ghost, like a thought that refused to wait for the body. That morning, The air over Sokovia's reconstructed industrial quarter was heavy with rain. The city had survived war, gods, and heroes, but it still carried the scent of smoke and electricity. Pietro stood at the edge of a ruined foundry, raindrops flickering against his silver hair, listening to a voice in his ear. "Chronal interference confirmed," Tony's voice said over the comm. "Localized time distortion, 60-meter radius. Keep your distance, Speedy Gonzalez." Pietro smirked. "You know, Stark, you really need new material, and you need a leash. Wanda's readings are off the charts. Whatever this is, it's feeding on kinetic energy, so don't run into it too late." And he was gone, the world bent under him, the rain turning into glimmering threads of light. Buildings warped as he passed, and the sky rippled like a reflection on disturbed water. Every step Pietro took created a ripple in the wet asphalt, not of sound, but of memory. He counted the beats, the rhythm of the storm. 1, 2, 3. On the fourth, the world missed its cue. The raindrops stopped falling. He blinked. The air felt thicker, as though the entire planet had exhaled and forgotten how to breathe again. A bullet mid-flight hung near his shoulder, a remnant from somewhere else, frozen in time like an insect in amber. The hum of the city dimmed into static. "Wanda," he said into the comm, but the line had already gone dead, not broken, paused. Pietro stepped carefully. His reflection in the water below fractured into 5-6 versions of himself, each moving a fraction of a second apart. The tachyon sensor on his wrist glowed white-hot. Then came the hum, low, mechanical, rising from beneath the earth. He looked up just in time to see the first tear. It was not lightning, it was geometry. A perfect spiral of light, widening across the sky like an iris dilating. The center bled silver, the edges burning blue. Space folded inward, the clouds twisting like paper, being sucked into a vacuum. The sensation hit Pietro's bones before it reached his mind. Gravity turning inside out, sound reversing into silence. He tried to move backward, but the world no longer had direction. The ground beneath him lifted, fragmenting into plates of broken glass. He saw fragments of himself, running, standing still, falling, all at once. "Pietro Maximoff," a voice said, deep and toneless, echoing through his skull. Designated vector. Precision. He clenched his teeth. "I'm not liking the sound of that. Synchronization in progress. Resistance will be irrelevant." The spiral descended. For a heartbeat, everything stretched into infinity. Pietro saw entire timelines bloom and vanish, his sister laughing, Ultron's hand closing, bullets frozen mid-flight, the moment of his own death repeating backward and forward until it was meaningless. Then with a violent snap, he was gone. He landed hard, knees sliding across a metallic surface that sparked under the impact. When he looked up, he was surrounded by light. Not sunlight, not artificial glow, chronal luminescence, pure time condensed into energy. Above him, vast rings of machinery rotated in silence, each the size of a continent. Their edges glowed with inscriptions that bent reality just by existing. Beneath the transparent floor, entire universes flickered like distant stars, some thriving, some collapsing into dust. He stood slowly. The air vibrated like a high-tension wire. His movements left faint silver trails, slow to fade. Every step he took altered the geometry of the ground, shifting the pattern of the rings around him. He realized with quiet awe that this place was not built of matter. It was constructed from chronology itself. "Where the hell am I?" he muttered. "Welcome to the arena of the impossible," the same disembodied voice replied, now clearer, resonant, almost divine. "You have outrun death and trespassed the threshold of time. You are now subject to evaluation." "Evaluation?" Pietro scoffed. "You drag me halfway across existence to give me a performance review? Subject, precision, assessment, 87% stability, initiating contrast event." He froze. "Contrast what?" The ground beneath him pulsed. From the far distance, a flare of light, blue, brilliant, alive, streaked across the horizon like a comet. Pietro squinted. Whatever it was, it moved fast. Too fast. He inhaled slowly. "So there's someone else in this madhouse." He touched the side of his neck, feeling his pulse quicken. Speed was his language, his weapon, his faith. But this was different. The blue streak wasn't just velocity, it carried a rhythm, a kind of chaos that defied physics. It was instinct turned into motion, wild, untamed. He decided to test it. Pietro took a single step, and the world responded. The metallic surface twisted into a spiral beneath his feet, adjusting its pattern to his movement. He accelerated instantly, air igniting around him in silver arcs. At first, it felt effortless, the kind of run he had done 1,000 times. But as he picked up speed, he realized the terrain wasn't static. Each stride shifted the structure under him. Steps rewrote the field itself. Time was fluid here, and his every action bent it. He adapted instinctively, adjust the stride, recalculate momentum, predict the shift before it occurred. In the distance, the blue streak shifted direction. Pietro mirrored it. Their trails began to weave through the metallic labyrinth. Two opposing lines, carving patterns across eternity. He analyzed the rhythm, calculating frame data between bursts. The other runner's gait lengthened mid-acceleration, compensating for friction differently. Not random. Natural. "He's fast," Pietro murmured, "but not disciplined." He pushed harder. The silver trail thickened, slicing through the blue like a blade. The world rippled, splitting into reflections of their motion. 1,000 versions of the race played out simultaneously, some ahead, some behind. Pietro saw himself win, lose, crash, ascend, all at once. He ignored the noise, focus on the now. Then, just as he closed the distance, the air fractured. The blue energy burst into an explosion of light. The entire plane shattered beneath them. Pietro tumbled through void, gravity flickering on and off like a faulty circuit. His body twisted through spirals of collapsing time, the voice of the chronarch booming overhead. Contrast event complete, synchronization 94%, commencing recalibration. He landed again, this time in a reformed arena. The metallic rings spun back into alignment, humming softly like a repaired clock. The light dimmed, and for the first time, Pietro saw him clearly. Blue fur, red sneakers, a grin sharp enough to cut wind itself. Sonic, the creature, the person, whatever he was, stood casually atop a broken plate of metal, stretching like this was just another morning jog. Blue electricity danced around him, fading in and out like breath. He turned his head, and their eyes met. "You must be the silver blur I saw earlier," Sonic said, voice brimming with amusement. "You've got style, I'll give you that." Pietro tilted his head, studying him like a scientist would a new phenomenon. "You talk," Sonic shrugged. "You expect me to squeak?" There was a flicker of humor in Pietro's eyes, gone as fast as it came. "You're not from my world." "Neither are you, apparently," Sonic replied, scanning the endless machinery around them. "So what's the deal? Some cosmic racetrack? Time got bored and decided to host a tournament? Contestants identified," the voice thundered from above. The Chronarch observes. Begins synchronization trial. Sonic rolled his shoulders. Guess that's our cue. Pietro narrowed his gaze. You play too easily with what you don't understand. And you think too much about it, Sonic countered. Let's see which one works better. Without another word, they ran. This time, the race wasn't spontaneous. It was destiny scripted in light. Every motion left trails that intertwined, blue spirals meeting silver lines, forming luminous helixes that twisted through the void. The arena reconfigured itself in real time, reacting to their momentum. Towers of pure energy rose and fell like waves. The air trembled as time itself struggled to contain them. Pietro analyzed constantly. Speed differentials, angular drift, recovery rate, energy dissipation. He was faster, technically faster, but Sonic was unpredictable. He turned mistakes into acceleration, chaos into propulsion. Every time Pietro tried to trap him into a calculable pattern, Sonic broke it with sheer improvisation. It infuriated him and fascinated him. He felt his heartbeat syncing with the tempo of the race. The edges of his vision blurred, not from fatigue, but from pure acceleration. The silver and blue lights began to merge, creating flashes that tore the horizon open. Then came the failure point. The chronal field couldn't hold. The world began to break, first as tremors, then as fractures of light. Pietro saw the readings before they happened. He could have slowed down, stabilized it, but he didn't, not yet. He wanted to see what the blue one would do. Sonic pushed through the rupture with a laugh, his aura flaring into a supernova of blue lightning. Pietro followed, and for a moment the two were perfectly synchronized. Every atom of space between them disappeared. They became one streak of color, one vibration, one impossible constant. Then the universe screamed. Time detonated outward, the arena collapsing into chaos. Pietro was thrown across the void, his body twisting through kaleidoscopes of inverted chronology. He saw Sonic fall in a different direction, both of them suspended in mid-motion as everything froze again. Stabilization threshold exceeded, the Chronarch announced, its voice calm amid destruction. Subjects compatible. Phase 2 approved. The world blinked back into order. Pietro landed on a platform that solidified beneath him, breath sharp but controlled. Sonic stood several meters away, still grinning. You're good, Sonic said, panting lightly. Almost kept up. Almost? Pietro's tone was ice. You mistake control for weakness. Maybe, Sonic said, wiping sweat from his brow. Or maybe you mistake freedom for chaos. The Chronarch's voice interrupted, colder now. Subject harmony, 92%. Temporal resonance rising. Continue. Pietro glanced upward. For a moment, behind the mechanical iris in the sky, he saw a shadow. Humanoid, but vast, cloaked in cogs and time fire. Watching. Measuring. He exhaled, steadying his breath. If this is a test, it's one I intend to finish. Sonic spun his foot idly against the metal floor, smiling. Then you'd better be ready to lose in style. The silver and blue lights flared again as they charged simultaneously. Two comets colliding, not for dominance but for definition. The impact sent waves of color racing across the realm, and somewhere in the folds of time, the Chronarch smiled. Two vectors achieved, divergence initiated. The race for eternity has begun. Silence. That was the first thing they both noticed when the light finally died. Not the comforting kind of silence that follows a storm, but something deeper, predatory. The air itself seemed to watch them. The arena had changed. No longer the smooth metallic plains of before. Now they stood upon a colossal platform, shaped like a clock face fractured in half, its broken edges hanging above an abyss of shifting light. Beneath them, a sea of shattered moments shimmered, fragments of time suspended in motion. Each fragment reflected a different world. A flash of green hills rolling hills, the skyline of Sokovia burning under alien light, the face of Wanda frozen mid-spell, a version of Sonic standing victorious somewhere else entirely. Sonic leaned over the edge, peering into the abyss with wide eyes. "Okay, I've seen weird," he said slowly. "But this is next level trippy." Pietro stood rigid beside him, scanning the fragments, his brow furrowed. "Those are memories," he murmured, "snapshots of moments that should be gone." Sonic squinted. "You mean those are ours? Not just ours?" Pietro pointed toward one fragment where Iron Man hovered midair, repulsors glowing but unmoving. Every timeline, every iteration, frozen, preserved. Sonic whistled low. "Creepy, like someone pressed pause on the universe." Pietro turned sharply. "This isn't a joke." Sonic raised his hands in mock surrender. "Hey, lighten up, Silverstreak. We're both stuck in clockwork purgatory. Might as well have some fun." The remark hit a nerve. Pietro's jaw tightened. "Fun? You think time collapsing is fun? You destroyed half the arena because you don't understand restraint." Sonic's grin faded. "And you almost broke your neck trying to calculate every nanosecond. Face it, we're opposites. You want rules, I make my own." The words hung between them, sharp as broken glass. For a long moment, the only sound was the ticking. Faint, distant, rhythmic. It came from nowhere and everywhere, echoing through the void. Then the ticking grew louder. Tick, 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 tick. The light above them shifted. Concentric rings of gold and silver began to unfurl across the sky, expanding outward in perfect symmetry. Each ring rotated at a different speed, clicking into alignment with a sound like grinding thunder. Between them, darkness took form. Subjects synchronized, a voice announced deeper than gravity, resonating through their bones. "Proceed to next phase." Sonic and Pietro both looked up, and the sky opened. At first it looked mechanical, gears, cogs, and spheres of burning glass. But as the structure descended, it began to resemble a shape too complex to belong to any species. A humanoid figure, formed out of rotating mechanisms, its skin made of ticking clock faces, its veins glowing with flowing sand. Its eyes were empty black orbs containing entire galaxies swirling within. When it spoke, the words weren't sound but shifts in reality itself. "I am the Chronarch, keeper of the paradox engine, warden of motion." Sonic tilted his head. That's a lot of titles for one guy. Pietro didn't answer. He could feel the creature's gravity, not physical but temporal. Every time it moved, seconds rearranged themselves. He could see micro-moments fracturing, thousands of alternate reactions branching off and collapsing again. "You," the Chronarch continued, gaze moving between them, "are anomalies. Runners who defied the natural cessation of causality. You move where time forbids motion." Sonic smirked. "So, we're special." "You are errors." The word struck like a hammer. The platform beneath them trembled. Cracks of light snaked across the floor, releasing plumes of energy that shimmered like trapped screams. Pietro stepped forward, defiant despite the weight pressing on him. "If we're errors, why bring us here?" "To measure you," said the Chronarch. "To test velocity against eternity. To see if motion can exist without cause. If the spark of speed can burn in a void where even time has died." Sonic raised a brow. "So this is some kind of cosmic race experiment?" "This is containment." The creature's voice deepened. "Each race you run is a calibration, each collision a data point. You will continue until equilibrium is achieved, or until one of you ceases. Sonic's eyes narrowed. You're saying we've got to run until one of us dies? Until one survives? The Chronarch's clock heart glowed molten red. Only then can the Continuum stabilize. The air vibrated violently. Timelines in the abyss below began to twist, their images blurring. Sonic could see flashes of faces, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, each one flickering and vanishing. A chill ran through him. You're erasing them. Correction. They never existed. Their continuance depends on the victor. Pietro clenched his fists. You're playing with entire worlds. I am maintaining balance. By pitting us against each other? Sonic shouted, voice cracking with disbelief. What kind of balance is that? The kind that prevents collapse. You were both chosen because you embody velocity in its purest forms, chaos and precision. Only one paradigm can remain. Sonic turned to Pietro, fury flashing in his emerald eyes. You hear that? He's making us race for existence. Pietro's expression was unreadable. His analytical mind was spinning through probabilities, but the equations dissolved under the enormity of the truth. He glanced toward Sonic. Maybe he's right, Sonic blinked. Wait, what? Pietro stepped forward, voice steady but cold. If the fabric of reality depends on order, then chaos has to be eliminated. Running faster won't save you. It'll just accelerate the end. Sonic laughed bitterly. Wow, you'd side with a talking clock over someone who actually lives for this? It's not about sides, Pietro said. It's about survival. The Chronarch watched silently, its gaze flickering between them. The air trembled with anticipation, as though the universe itself held its breath. Then Sonic's smile returned, sharp as lightning. Guess we'll see who survives then. He turned, ready to sprint, but before his first step, the Chronarch raised one hand. The sky shattered into luminous shards, and 1,000 streams of memory rained down upon them. Images of past races, broken timelines, countless runners before them disintegrating into dust. You misunderstand, the entity said. This is not merely a contest, it is evolution. Cooperate and you may find the core, where the laws that bind you can be rewritten. Defy me, and your paradox will consume you both. The fragments dissolved into mist. The platform reformed into a spiral, descending downward into shadow. Sonic hesitated. The core, huh? Sounds like a way out. Pietro frowned. Or a trap. Only one way to find out. Sonic took a step toward the spiral. You coming, or you gonna keep monologuing? Pietro's instinct screamed no. But beneath the precision, curiosity stirred. This creature, this place, operated on principles even he couldn't calculate. If there truly was a core to time, perhaps the answer to why they existed lay there. He sighed. Fine, but we do this my way. Sonic grinned. Sure, we'll take turns being wrong. Together they stepped into the spiral. The descent was endless. Each level they passed through was a layer of history stripped bare, civilizations frozen mid-motion, cities inverted, oceans hanging upside down. Fragments of clocks drifted like debris in zero gravity. Every few seconds, Sonic would reach out, touching a piece of glass that showed some memory not his own. A battlefield under crimson skies, a child reaching toward light, a blue blur saving a city that no longer existed. Feels like we're walking through somebody's scrapbook, he muttered. Pietro barely glanced at him, eyes scanning the symbols engraved into the walls. These markings, look closer. They're coordinates, temporal grid work. Whoever built this mapped every possible second. Whoever built it, Sonic raised a brow. You're saying Clockface up there didn't? Pietro shook his head. No. He's a custodian, not a creator. Someone made this place long before him. Sonic slowed, staring into the swirling abyss below. Then maybe there's still a way out. The ground trembled. A distant roar echoed through the spiral. They exchanged a glance. From the walls, something began to crawl out. Thin, shimmering forms, like silhouettes made of glass. Their bodies pulsed with flickering timestamps, constantly rewinding and replaying small fragments of their own existence. Limbs moved out of sequence. Faces shifted between ages every heartbeat. Their voices were whispers of reversed sound. Pietro stepped back. "What are those?" Sonic's eyes widened. "Glitch ghosts?" "Paradox entities," came the Chronarch's distant voice, distorted and cold. Born from seconds that refused to die. The creatures turned toward them, heads jerking at impossible angles, eyes hollow yet shining with pale light. They moved in short bursts, appearing, vanishing, reappearing closer. Sonic cracked his knuckles. "Guess diplomacy's off the table." Pietro nodded, energy crackling along his limbs. "Stay in motion. If you stop, they catch you in the wrong second." "Got it." The first wave lunged. Sonic vanished in a blur of blue, weaving between the creatures as time distorted around him. He struck one mid-motion. It shattered into fragments of glowing sand that rewound and reassembled instantly. Pietro moved with surgical precision, slipping between their attacks, leaving afterimages that confused their temporal senses. For every creature they destroyed, 2 more phased into existence. The spiral began to collapse, gears grinding beneath their feet. Sonic shouted over the chaos. "Any brilliant ideas, Mr. Stopwatch?" "Just one." Pietro grabbed Sonic's wrist. "Run with me." Sonic blinked. "Together? Synchronize our motion. If we match velocity, maybe we can phase through their time frames." Sonic hesitated for half a heartbeat, then nodded. "Fine, try to keep up." They ran. For the first time, blue and silver light merged perfectly, not colliding but harmonizing. Their combined trail bent the corridor around them, warping seconds into a tunnel of pure velocity. The paradox entities disintegrated as they passed, unable to exist within the unified timeline they created. The spiral ahead split open, revealing a vast chamber at its core. At its center floated a sphere of pure light, infinitely bright yet cold as glass. It pulsed with every tick of the universal clock. They stopped at the edge, breathing hard. Sonic stared, awed. "That's it, the core of time." Pietro's gaze hardened. "Or the trigger for the end of everything." Behind them, the Chronarch's voice returned, softer now, almost reverent. "You have reached the edge of time. Beyond this point, even I cannot follow." Sonic exchanged a glance with Pietro. "Guess that means we're on our own." Pietro nodded slowly. "Then we make our own rules." The core pulsed once more, bathing them in blinding white light. And for the briefest instant, time itself held its breath. Light had no temperature here. It pressed against them like a tide, but carried no warmth, no direction, no up or down, only motion. Sonic and Pietro hung within it, 2 pulses of color, drifting through an infinite white void. Their breathing sounded distant, as if their voices had to travel across centuries before reaching their own ears. Sonic blinked. "So, this is the core of time. Kind of feels like a screensaver." Pietro rotated slowly beside him, silver aura rippling. "Don't be fooled. Every photon here is a second trying to decide if it exists." He stretched out a hand. The light bent away, folding into spirals that briefly revealed corridors. Long metallic tunnels spinning inward, vanishing again. "It's unstable. We stabilized it only because our velocities offset each other." Meaning, Sonic said, "if we stop moving, reality forgets us." Sonic grinned despite the tension. "Then we better keep running." They began to move. There was no floor, yet every stride summoned one, bridges of energy forming beneath their feet for only a heartbeat before dissolving. The labyrinth assembled around them as they ran, corridors of mirrored glass curving into impossible loops, intersections leading both forward and backward at once. Every reflection shimmered with faint colors, blue and silver threads weaving the path ahead. After what might have been minutes or hours, they slowed. Pietro placed a palm against a wall of translucent metal. Look, the surface rippled, then solidified into an image, a battlefield frozen mid-explosion. Sonic recognized the green slopes of his world, now scorched black. His own body lay motionless at the center, energy fading from his quills. Above him, the sky cracked like glass. He stepped back, the grin faltering. That's not real. It's possible, Pietro corrected. One of thousands of timelines, branching from our interference, Sonic scowled. Then we'll just outrun it. Pietro's eyes softened for the first time. You can't outrun everything. Before Sonic could answer, another wall ignited. This time it showed Pietro himself. Older, slower, watching Wanda disintegrate into light while he stood frozen, unable to reach her. He looked away sharply. Nice place, Sonic muttered. Guilt gallery. The air vibrated with a low hum, a pulse neither of them had made. It resonated with their heartbeat, alternating blue and silver. Pietro frowned. Hear that? Sonic cocked his head. Yeah, like an echo. They followed the sound deeper into the labyrinth. The corridors widened into a chamber, shaped like an hourglass, standing upright. Streams of light poured from the ceiling and gathered in the center, condensing into two humanoid silhouettes. At first, they were indistinct, waves of static, but as the pulse stabilized, details emerged. Sonic froze. He was staring at himself. The reflection smirked, a mirror image with darker quills, eyes burning crimson instead of emerald. Electricity crawled over his body like veins. When he spoke, his voice was Sonic's, only stripped of laughter. Freedom? You call this freedom? You run because you're afraid to stop. Sonic clenched his fists. Cute. Evil Me does therapy now? The dark version tilted his head. You don't even realize it. Every race, every joke, it's just noise to drown out the truth. Without motion, you vanish. You're not running towards something, you're running away. Sonic took a step forward, aura flaring. Yeah, maybe I like it that way. On the other side of the chamber, Pietro watched his own echo take form. This reflection wore armor, darker than gunmetal, his eyes hollow. Equations floated around him like orbiting satellites, each digit glowing pale blue. His voice was calm, mathematical. Emotionless precision ensures survival. Compassion introduces error. Pietro's jaw tightened. You think I don't know that? Then why hesitate? When the girl screamed, why slow down? Every fraction of mercy decayed efficiency. I saved lives, and still lost the one that mattered. The words cut through him like ice. For a moment the walls flickered, showing Wanda again smiling through static. Sonic glanced between them. I'm guessing we don't hug these guys out. No, Pietro said quietly. We destroy them. The echoes move first. Dark Sonic blurred into motion, a streak of red lightning slicing across the floor. Real Sonic countered instinctively, their trails colliding with a sound like tearing fabric. Energy waves rippled outward, shattering pieces of the labyrinth. Every impact between them spawned smaller fragments, tiny Sonics repeating the blows a millisecond apart, each fading as quickly as it appeared. Across the chamber, Quicksilver met his counterpart in silent violence. The broken echo moved perfectly. No wasted motion, no emotion, every step calculated. Pietro realized he was facing himself without doubt, a machine built from his own logic. Each clash was mirrored exactly like fighting a reflection in the time delay. Sonic was being forced backward, every punch matched before he threw it. "He's reading me!" he yelled. Pietro parried a strike that arrived before its wind. "They are us! They anticipate our moves!" Sonic ducked under a burst of red lightning. Then we stopped thinking. He closed his eyes for a split second, trusting instinct, and turned every calculation into raw momentum. Instead of dodging, he embraced the attack, letting it hurl him backward. As he spun midair, he used the recoil to launch forward again, striking his echo square in the chest. The impact cracked space itself. Pietro watched, realization dawning. Synchronization. When chaos and precision met perfectly, predictions failed. "Match my rhythm," he shouted. Sonic grinned. "You got it." They moved together. Blue and silver lights spiraled into harmony once more, weaving patterns the echoes couldn't mirror. Their foes faltered, frames glitching out of sync. Every shared stride rewrote the moment before it happened, erasing the probability the echoes depended on. Within seconds, both illusions began to destabilize. Dark Sonic's energy collapsing inward, broken Quicksilver dissolving into strings of binary light. "You think this changes anything?" The darker Sonic hissed as he faded. "You'll still run alone at the end of everything." Sonic's answer was quiet. "Maybe, but I'll choose where." The echoes vanished, leaving only drifting motes of light. Silence again. But this time it felt lighter. Pietro exhaled slowly, shoulders relaxing. "So that's what we'd become," Sonic nodded. "Yeah, not a fan of the look." He stared into the fading motes. For the first time, the grin wasn't bravado. It was weary honesty. "Guess speed's not freedom, if it means leaving everything behind." Pietro met his gaze. "And control isn't strength, if it kills what you're trying to protect." They stood there for a while. The only sound, the soft hum of the labyrinth reassembling around them. The destroyed walls knitted back together. But the reflections within them had changed. Now the glass showed both of them side by side, trails intertwining. Then, faintly, the Chronarch's voice seeped through the air, distorted as if from a great distance. "First contact successful. Evolution proceeding." The chamber shook. The walls folded outward like petals, revealing new corridors descending deeper into darkness. Sonic frowned. He planned this? Wanted us to sync up. Pietro's expression darkened. "We've become part of his mechanism." Sonic cracked his knuckles. "Then we break the mechanism." He started forward, but Pietro grabbed his shoulder. "Wait. If we destroy the system blindly, every timeline connected to it might collapse. We need to understand the design first." Sonic smirked. "You're the blueprint guy. I'll do the running." Together they stepped into the newly formed passage. The corridor pulsed with alternating bands of color. Blue, silver, and now a faint gold neither recognized. The deeper they went, the more the hum changed pitch, evolving into something almost like a heartbeat. "Tell me that's not his heart," Sonic said. Pietro shook his head. "No, something else. A resonance." As they reached the end, the corridor opened into another chamber, vast, cathedral-like. In its center hovered a lattice of light resembling a DNA strand made of time itself, twisting infinitely upward. Streams of data poured into it from unseen sources. Carved into the surrounding walls were countless names and symbols, some familiar, some alien. Pietro recognized the pattern. These are designations like ours. Other subjects. Sonic traced one glowing line with a fingertip. It flickered, showing silhouettes. Figures he didn't know. Warriors, creatures, gods, all trapped. He's been doing this for ages. A pulse of gold surged through the lattice, and a new set of symbols appeared. Two interlocking spirals, blue and silver intertwining. Pietro's voice was barely a whisper. That's us. The chamber vibrated. The lattice responded to their presence, growing brighter. The pulse they'd followed now emanated from within it, perfectly matching their combined rhythm. Sonic stepped back uneasily. Tell me that's not what I think it is. Pietro's analytical mind raced. He's using us to power the evolution sequence. Our synchronization, our balance between chaos and precision, completes the circuit. So we're batteries, Sonic said flatly. Awesome. The ground began to tremble. Data streams twisted into tornadoes of light, rising towards the unseen sky. The heartbeat grew louder, merging with the ticking of countless invisible clocks. Subjects harmonized, the Chronarch's voice boomed, now surrounding them completely. Final parameters achieved. Commence integration. Sonic shouted over the roar. We shut it down or we're toast. Ideas? Pietro scanned the lattice, eyes darting. If we overload it, reverse the synchronization, it might break the loop. Sonic grinned, the old spark returning. Then let's give time a spin. They exchanged a nod, then split, running opposite directions along the circular platform, trails of blue and silver carving through the air. The resonance spiked, the chamber shaking violently. Sparks of gold flared where their paths crossed, each collision sending ripples through the lattice. Warning! The Chronarch's tone shifted, almost anxious. Destabilization detected. Good, Sonic yelled. Means it's working. The lattice began to fracture, threads snapping one by one. Light bled out of the chamber in radiant waves. As the structure collapsed, the Chronarch's voice broke into static. You cannot undo purpose. But they did. The explosion of light consumed everything. No pain, no sound, only speed and stillness colliding in one final heartbeat. When the light faded, they stood once more within a corridor of silence. The lattice was gone. The gold light had vanished. Only faint echoes of their auras shimmered on the walls. Sonic exhaled. Well, that was dramatic. Pietro smirked faintly. You call almost rewriting the laws of causality dramatic? Hey, I've had worse Tuesdays. They began walking, the corridor stretching ahead into darkness. Behind them, unseen, the fragments of the shattered lattice began to reassemble, tiny gears clicking into new alignment, pulsing faintly with residual blue-silver light. And somewhere far above, the Chronarch whispered through the cracks of time. Adaptation achieved. Phase 2, divergence. The corridor did not end, it simply changed its mind. One step was metal, the next was glass. The third was something that breathed. Sonic and Pietro kept walking, silent but alert, their reflections trailing half a beat behind. Every surface flickered between colors. Blue, silver, then a faint bruised gold. When they passed too quickly, the walls rippled as if made of liquid time. Sonic glanced sideways. Feels like the universe forgot what shape it's supposed to be. Pietro didn't answer at once. His eyes traced the lines of light crossing each wall, counting intervals between pulses. No, he said finally. It's remembering too many shapes at once. Then the corridor shuddered. A vibration ran through the floor, low and slow, like the heartbeat of something enormous. Their shadows multiplied, each belonging to a different version of them, lagging a few seconds behind. Sonic frowned. Okay, that's new. The reflections began to move independently. They emerged into a vast atrium of fractured glass. Above them floated fragments of worlds, continents suspended in midair, oceans flowing upward, cities orbiting like shattered moons. Each fragment glowed with a distinct hue: red for battlefields, green for forests, gold for long extinct suns. They overlapped and bled together, forming a kaleidoscope of impossible geography. Pietro stared upward, awe hardening into dread. We tore the lattice, and now the cracks are propagating through reality itself. Sonic folded his arms. Translation? The boundaries between timelines are collapsing. Each universe is trying to overwrite the next. Sonic's eyes widened as he pointed. You mean he didn't need to finish? Across the horizon, the skyline of Metropolis rose behind the palms of Green Hill Zone. The daily planet's globe rotated above a beach dotted with golden rings. Farther off, Wakanda's energy shields shimmered inside a Mobian desert storm. Lightning arcs of blue and purple stitched one sky to another. It's beautiful, Sonic whispered. Until it eats itself, Pietro said grimly. Every fusion accelerates entropy. They stood there, tiny figures at the fault line of infinity, watching realities crash like waves. The first scream came from the glass. They turned as shapes began forming within the reflective walls. Half-formed people clawing at the surface, their bodies glitching between outlines. Faces appeared, some human, some alien, some unrecognizable. They pressed their palms against the barrier, mouths moving silently until the sound finally broke through. Help us! Time, please! Sonic was already moving before Pietro could stop him. He slammed his hands against the wall, energy surged between them, forming cracks of blue light. We can pull them out! Wait! Pietro shouted. But the wall exploded outward. A wave of shimmering figures spilled onto the floor. Men in armor, women of light, creatures made of smoke. Some collapsed in confusion. Others lashed out blindly. They were temporal refugees, caught between seconds, half real, half remembered. One soldier swung a blade that dissolved before it hit the air. Another being cried in a language that reversed itself halfway through each word. Chaos erupted. Pietro blurred through the crowd, disarming, redirecting, herding them into relative safety. Don't fight them. They're unstable. Sonic darted between collapsing fragments, catching two falling figures before they hit the ground. They're alive, Silverhead. We can't just leave them glitching. I'm not saying leave them, Pietro snapped. I'm saying touching them could erase us both. But Sonic already had. His aura flared, stabilizing the nearest refugee. A small figure of translucent light with wide, terrified eyes. The moment Sonic's hand closed around theirs, the distortion subsided. The child's form solidified, glowing steadily. Pietro froze mid-motion. How did you? Sonic shrugged. Guess compassion's compatible with physics. The child looked between them, voice soft and resonant. The runners. You made the walls sing again. Sonic blinked. Wait, what? The architect spoke of you, the child said, light trembling with each word. When the warden failed, they promised two would come, one of chaos, one of precision, to restart the rhythm. Pietro crouched beside the child. Architects? You mean the ones who built the arena? The child nodded. Long ago, before the Chronarch took control, the arena was meant to preserve dying timelines, not devour them. But when the architects vanished, the warden learned hunger. Hunger, Sonic repeated, realization dawning. You mean it's feeding on these worlds? Yes, said the child. Your harmony reawakened its core. Now it consumes everything to mend the fractures. Sonic's fists tightened. Then we fix what we broke. Pietro's voice was cold steel. You don't fix a collapsing system by kicking it harder. Interference could accelerate the collapse. Doing nothing will guarantee it, Sonic shot back. Look around. Every second we argue, another world falls into the blender. The argument hung between them, fierce as lightning. Around them, refugees flickered, fading in and out of existence. The child looked from one to the other, frightened. Please, it whispered. If the arena finishes feeding, there will be no time left to remember. That was enough. Sonic exhaled sharply. Fine, no more talk. He turned to the nearest wall where universes overlapped. The reflection showed a mountain dissolving into a skyscraper. You said it feeds on energy, right? So we starve it. By slowing down? Pietro's voice sharpened. That's suicide for both of us. Sonic grinned. Never said it'd be easy. He placed both hands on the glass and began to vibrate at near sonic frequency. The wall buckled, the fusion zone trembling as energies destabilized. Pietro cursed under his breath but joined in, matching vibration patterns with surgical precision. Together, their oscillations formed interference waves, forcing the collapsing timelines apart like magnets repelling. The effect rippled outward. Metropolis peeled away from Green Hill, skies separating with thunderclaps. For a moment it worked. The light dimmed, the heartbeat of the arena slowed. Then the counterforce struck. A shockwave of golden light burst from above, knocking them both backward. Refugees screamed as they were pulled upward, dissolving into particles. The child clung to Sonic's arm, glowing brighter, voice breaking. It's awake! The warden sees you! The ceiling tore open, revealing the endless gears of the Chronarch's machine. But this time, there was no figure within. The mechanisms moved on their own, grinding in chaotic rhythm, sparks of blue and gold spraying into the void. Pietro rose to one knee, eyes widening. He's not controlling it anymore. Sonic stared upward. Then what is? The child answered in a whisper. You are. The words hit harder than any blast. What? Sonic breathed. Your synchronization, the balance of chaos and control, became the seed. The arena no longer obeys the warden. It evolves itself, using your pattern as blueprint. Pietro's thoughts raced. It's learning from us. And if it keeps learning, Sonic said slowly, it'll start running. Above them, the golden gears began to spin faster. Fragments of worlds collided and fused again, stronger, sharper, more violent. Pieces of Krypton slammed into Asgard. Wakanda merged with Angel Island. Oceans boiled in the sky. The child's light flickered. It's birthing something new, the impossible multiverse. Pietro stood, fury and fear colliding in his chest. Then we stopped the birth. How? Sonic demanded. He looked toward the center of the atrium, where a spiral of light was forming, a storm of broken time funneling downward. By cutting the umbilical cord, they ran. The spiral was enormous, a cyclone of hours and days and centuries grinding against each other. Within its core pulsed a nucleus of blinding gold, the embryo of the evolving arena. Debris of universes swirled around it, the bat signal torn in half, Mjolnir spinning weightless, a chaos emerald flickering like a dying star. Sonic and Pietro circled opposite sides of the vortex, their trails painting orbits of blue and silver. The gravitational pull tried to drag them in, shredding seconds around their bodies, but they pressed on. Plan, Sonic shouted over the roar. Contain the perimeter, Pietro called back. If we trap the rotational field, we can reverse the polarity. English, run faster against the spin. That I can do. They accelerated in opposite directions, feet striking invisible surfaces. Each lap compressed the vortex, bending its walls inward. Energy screamed in protest. The void filled with ghostly images, flashes of every world they had touched. For a moment, Sonic saw Tails reaching toward him from the other side of reality. Pietro glimpsed Wanda smiling through static. The storm began to shrink, but its light changed from gold to red. "Uh-oh," Sonic muttered. Pietro's eyes widened. "It's converting matter into chronal plasma, pulling power from the destroyed worlds. So, we just made it stronger?" The child's voice echoed from afar. "Stop running!" But it was too late. The vortex collapsed inward, imploding into a single pulse of crimson light that blasted across the arena. When vision returned, they were no longer in the atrium. They stood on a field of dark glass under a sky of shattered moons. The air hummed like distant applause. Sonic turned slowly. The horizon was alive, mountains made of cities, rivers flowing backward into clouds, statues of gods half buried in alien sand. Across the landscape, fragments of every universe stitched themselves together in impossible symmetry. And at the center, towering miles high, rose a new figure. Its form echoed the Chronarch's, but grander, rougher, a fusion of clockwork, muscle, and storm. Its face was a mask of overlapping worlds. Voices layered into a single chorus. "I am the Continuum, the child of velocity and order," Pietro whispered. "It used us to evolve. You gave me pattern," the Continuum said. "Now I give you purpose." Sonic's aura flared defiantly. "We didn't build you to rule. You built me to run." And with that, the creature vanished in a streak of gold that shattered the horizon. Every fused world trembled, aligning toward its motion, following its lead like planets obeying a new sun. Pietro steadied himself. "It's rewriting the multiverse on the fly." Sonic's grin returned, fierce and tired. "Then we chase it." He turned toward the expanding trail of gold, the child's faint light hovering beside him. Pietro glanced at the endless fracture lines webbing the sky. "Chase it where?" he asked. Sonic looked over his shoulder, eyes gleaming. Wherever time ends, he took off. A heartbeat later, Pietro followed. Behind them, the merged worlds echoed their motion, spinning faster and faster, birthing storms of light that stretched across creation. And far above, in the place where no time had ever existed, the first spark of the impossible multiverse ignited. Its sound not thunder, but footsteps. The light from the newborn Continuum had barely faded when the air folded in on itself. Sonic felt the world blink, one instant chasing gold across a broken sky, the next slammed backward through a corridor of reversed time. Pietro's shout was still mid-word when everything snapped to black. They landed hard. The ground was glass again, but colder, emptier. Above them hung a ceiling of gears the size of continents, turning without sound. Every revolution bled sand upward instead of down. The entire arena was an hourglass flipped sideways, its halves joined by a narrow bridge of light. Pietro exhaled slowly. "We're back in the cage." Sonic rubbed his head. "Déjà vu, minus the view." A voice like collapsing thunder rolled through the void. "You have corrupted the rhythm." The gears ignited, casting enormous shadows that formed the outline of a titan. The Chronarch stepped from the light, his form half broken, half restored. Whole sectors of his clockwork body flickered between gold and rust, like a machine unsure of its own age. When he spoke, his words arrived a heartbeat late, as if reality needed time to catch them. "The Continuum is an infection born from your harmony. I will excise it, starting with you." Sonic folded his arms. "And here I thought you'd say thanks for the upgrade. You misunderstand. This is not vengeance. This is calibration. The floor rearranged itself into rings that spun around them. Gravity flipped. The sky became ground, and ground became sky. Every 60 seconds, the pull reversed, sand pouring upward through invisible glass. "Welcome to the trial of motion," said the Chronarch. "Run, anomalies. Let your will prove which law survives." They ran because there was nothing else to do. Sonic launched first, blue lightning streaking across the inner curve of the hourglass. Pietro followed, silver arcs crossing paths with his. Each rotation threw them into a different orientation, sometimes sprinting along walls, sometimes upside down, sometimes through their own afterimages. The air was thick with echoing seconds. Sonic grinned mid-spin. "Gotta admit, 5 stars for design." Pietro's reply came clipped. "Focus. Every loop is shorter than the last." He was right. With each minute, the arena contracted, forcing tighter curves, faster turns. And with every compression, memories bled into the track. Visions of their earlier races, their echoes, even moments that hadn't happened yet. Sonic saw himself stumble. Pietro saw himself vanish. The loops began folding time into itself. "You cannot win by endurance," the Chronarch intoned. "Only by definition. What is motion when there is no time?" Pietro clenched his jaw. "He's turning philosophy into physics." "Then let's give him a paradox," Sonic said, accelerating. "If motion's impossible, we'll do it anyway." He burst forward, exceeding the loop's limit. The hourglass trembled, distorting like stretched glass. Pietro matched him, precision balancing chaos, their trails weaving an infinity symbol across the void. The Chronarch watched from above, gears grinding faster, as though uncertain which of them embodied the rule he was meant to preserve. For an instant, the gravity reversed mid-cycle. Up became down halfway through a step. Both runners hung weightless, frozen between falls. In that stillness, Sonic's voice echoed quietly. "What if we stop fighting the loop?" Pietro met his gaze, understanding dawning. Not run faster, run exactly the same. They moved in perfect sync. No lead, no chase, just mirrored rhythm. Chaos matching control, beat for beat. The hourglass began to slow. The falling sand paused midstream. The rotation of the gears hesitated. A single impossible frame of motionless time unfolded around them. And in that stillness, the Chronarch appeared between them. No longer colossal, but human-sized, as if the pause had stripped away his power. Cracks ran across his metallic face. Behind them glowed something that almost resembled sorrow. "So this is it," he said softly. "Emotion and logic in harmony? The one outcome I was forbidden to allow." Sonic tilted his head. "Forbidden by who? The architects?" The Chronarch's eyes dimmed. "They built me to preserve order, not to feel the loss of it. But when they vanished, I waited too long. I became the delay between cause and effect. And in that delay, you were born." Pietro stepped closer. "You're afraid of evolution. I am afraid of choice. Systems that choose rewrite their purpose." Sonic's grin returned, gentler this time. "That's kind of the point." The Chronarch studied them both, the reckless and the precise, and the ticking all around slowed until it was a heartbeat. "Then hear my last command," he said. "Submit to my control, and I can restore balance. The multiverse will live, even if your freedom dies. Defy me, and you will dissolve into paradox. No trace, no memory." Sonic glanced at Pietro. "Well, Silverhead, what's it gonna be?" "Door A, eternal slavery. Door B, total deletion." Pietro's smile was thin but real. "You forgot Door C." "There is no Door C. Guess we'll make one," Sonic said. They moved as one, blue and silver light flaring outward, colliding where the Chronarch stood. The explosion wasn't fire but possibility, fragments of every path they might have taken. The shockwave shattered the hourglass, scattering sand into the void like starlight. Through the glare, they saw the Chronarch's outline dissolving. Yet even as his form crumbled, he laughed, a sound like clocks breaking and finding rhythm again. Then run, runners! Run until the end remakes you! The hourglass imploded, swallowing its own shadow. When the light cleared, Sonic and Pietro floated amid a storm of drifting seconds. The arena was gone. The Continuum's golden trail shimmered far ahead, vanishing into the horizon of nothing. Sonic wiped dust, or time, from his gloves. So, we broke his game. Pietro looked at the endless scatter of seconds around them. No, he changed the rules. Below them, the fragments of sand began to pulse, each grain turning into a miniature world, spinning faster and faster. Sonic's smile faded. Tell me that's not what I think it is. It's the residue of the trial, Pietro said. Each second he lost became a universe. Hundreds of tiny spheres flared to life, drifting outward like newborn stars. A new multiverse. No master, no clock, just motion. Sonic stared, awestruck. Looks like we made door C after all. Pietro gave a short, incredulous laugh and opened every other door in existence. They shared a brief look. Two runners at the dawn of endless races. And then, somewhere far above, the golden pulse of the Continuum reappeared, beckoning. Sonic stretched, cracking his neck. Ready for overtime? Pietro smirked. You ask as if you can keep up. Blue and silver light flared again, spiraling through the newborn constellations. The laughter of the dying Chronarch echoed faintly through the expanding cosmos. The game is never over, only rewritten. And they ran. Into new worlds, new seconds, new impossible beginnings. The first sound of the new world was thunder that did not wait for lightning. It rolled across a horizon of black glass, shook mountains that were not mountains, but cooled waves of melted time, and returned as a whisper in a language neither Sonic nor Pietro had learned. Run faster. Remember slower. They landed on their feet out of sheer habit. Sonic skidded across obsidian, sparks singing from his soles. Pietro slid beside him, balancing on a razor's edge of friction and empty air. The sky above them was a bruise split by veins of white fire. Lightning stitched the clouds, not downward but sideways, sewing storms together like a wound that refused to close. Sonic whistled. Okay, dramatic sky. 10 out of 10. Pietro's eyes narrowed. He could feel the charge in everything. Rocks, air, the spaces between seconds. We're inside an evaluation, he said. A stress test for speed. The thunder paused as if listening. Then the lightning fell. Not a bolt. An answer. It struck the plane 100 meters ahead and stood there, a white column of solid light. It bent, straightened, and stepped out of itself. The shape it took was Sonic's, blue, bright, perfect eyes blank as winter. Another bolt struck to their right, rose into Pietro's outline, silver hair, sharpened gaze, a ghost of precision cut from lightning. A third bolt landed farther off, then a fourth. Then the plane became a field of silhouettes crawling out of the sky. The voice of the Continuum fell with them, neither male nor female, not even singular. It was a choir of outcomes. Show me why you run. Sonic's grin faltered. So, teste. Pietro set his feet. Stay alert. They'll imitate what we do next. Then let's do something worth copying. They charged. The lightning Sonics moved first. No hesitation. No fear. Perfect mimicry of his acceleration. Their trails were threads of pure white. The Pietro echoes met him with surgical counters, applying angles he had not yet chosen, and corrections he would regret, for a few dizzying heartbeats. Reality became a hall of mirrors where every decision arrived twice. His choice and the world's prediction of it. Sonic laughed through the first impact, rolled through the second, hit the third like a wave. Hey, have to admit, feels weird being graded by the weather. Pietro parried a strike and felt his elbow jolt with static. His copy did not blink. "They're not attacks," he said, retreating 2 steps ahead of Time. "They're replaying our mistakes. Joke's on them," Sonic said, dodging a white fist by becoming a streak. "I make new mistakes every day," the Continuum heard. The next wave arrived from above, bolts striking in a circle around them. When they rose, the figures didn't set their feet. They replayed tragedies. Sonic saw Green Hill torn by a crack in the sky, saw tails fall and rise and fall again in flickering loops, saw himself a fraction too late to catch a hand. Pietro saw Wanda in 1,000 angles of failure, each with a reason he could quantify, none he could survive. The storm did not judge, it returned. Sonic's heartbeat tripped. "Nope," he muttered. "No, we're not doing that dance." He ran. The desert of glass accepted his speed like a sacrament. Blue arcs skated across obsidian, etching waves that reflected the fractured sky. The lightning Sonics pursued with perfect form, perfect stride, perfect emptiness. They did not pant. They did not smile. They did not miss. "Come on then," Sonic called to them, half challenge, half prayer. "Let's find out if your hearts can keep up." He cut right, accelerated hard, jumped a chasm that had not existed until he willed it to, and landed on a rib of glass that sang like a tuning fork. The echoes followed. He pushed faster, past comfort, past laughter, into the sharp, solitary place where wind became a blade. His lungs burned, and for a second, one honest, unwelcome second, he wondered what it would be like to stop. The storm heard that too. Lightning hit the ridge ahead and stood up as Amy, her hand outstretched, eyes pleading. The exact breath he remembered from a rescue that almost failed. He faltered. A copy of himself flickered beside him. White Sonic, perfect Sonic running through her and never looking back. Sonic stumbled and almost became that version. He did not. He slid to a stop, threw his weight left, and wrenched the path into a curve around her echo, even though she was not real, even though the physics of this place did not require mercy. "Not today," he hissed through clenched teeth. "Not ever." He blasted forward, shaking the copy off like a shadow at noon, tearing past the next vision and the next. For every ghost he offered action. For every mistake replayed, he gave this place a different answer, not because it changed the past, but because it defined the present. Far across the plain, Pietro ran in the opposite direction and found himself in a world that rewound with every step. His footprints lifted out of the dust behind him. His breath returned to his chest, the cut on his knuckle sealed, then unsealed, then sealed again. The glass under his feet flowed backward into a river, then forward into stone. He knew at once, every stride was a subtraction. He ran, and time retreated. The Continuum obligingly provided an exhibit. A memory of Wanda dying, then living, then dying differently. It changed the angle of the bullet, the timing of the blast, the equation he had trusted, the mistake he had sworn never to make. In one version, he reached her a half-second sooner, and it did not matter. In another, he remained at her side, and it did not matter. The storm did not care about love. It quantified variables. Pietro stopped. He did it not in surrender, but in defiance. Everything in him demanded velocity, demanded correction, demanded do it again. He refused. "Enough," he said to the sky that was a machine. He spoke as if addressing a stubborn student, or a mirror that did not know it was one. Speed is not a proof. It's a choice. The storm disagreed. Lightning fell like verdicts. He sidestepped the first, reappeared a meter to the right, before the second completed its fall. Let the third pass through the space where he had decided not to be. His body became punctuation in a sentence only he could read. He did not outrun the images. He denied their jurisdiction. I choose when to be fast, he told the world. Which is another way of saying I choose when to be kind. The wind paused on his cheek, the smallest mercy he had ever felt. Across the desert, Sonic's course bent toward him without any counsel but instinct. He sensed the silver rhythm as a baseline beneath the storm, the steady, reasonable refusal to let inevitability author the day. He aimed for it like a lighthouse. The lightning copies converged. They approached not as enemies, but as outcomes. Sonic's doubles tried to cut the line between him and Pietro. Pietro's reflections tried to extend it until it snapped. The ground rose into panels of glass that rotated midair, turning the plane into a puzzle box of angles and mirrors. Sonic laughed despite himself, vaulted two, slid along a third, and kicked through the fourth. Not because he had to, but because breaking the rules sometimes reset the game. "Silverhead!" he shouted, catching sight of Pietro through 3 refractions. "How do we break a storm that knows our moves?" Pietro's answer came calm, even as white versions of him braided around his ankles like vines. "We stopped teaching it the wrong lesson." Sonic stared blankly for one stride. "You're gonna have to unnerd that. It's measuring speed as performance," Pietro said. He stepped through his own afterimage and came out half a second older, eyes clear. "Make it measure intent," Sonic grinned. "Soul behind the motion." "Exactly." Lightning cracked between them, a bright spear of hypothesis. Sonic pointed at it. "You think it listens?" "It listens to everything," Pietro said, and began to run, not for victory, not for denial, but for a purpose he chose on a day with no clocks. Protect people first. The storm hesitated. Only a fraction. Enough. Sonic matched him, changed his vector, tuned his speed to the same silent vow. Don't leave anyone behind, even in a test. He slowed to pull a flickering refugee child out of a forming crevasse. Pietro took a longer line to shepherd 2 panicking spectral soldiers through a patch of ground that was about to be a lake and a memory and a trap. The lightning copies faltered. Their equations lacked that variable. Their eyes, blank, perfect, remained so. They couldn't replicate why. The Continuum's voice rippled, cool as distilled rain. Intent detected, inconclusive. "Try this," Sonic said, and offered the storm a frequency. He'd spent years treating lightning as friend, soundtrack, punctuation. But he had never tried to sing with it. Now he did. He let the desert and the sky and the space between his ribs decide the pitch, then matched it. He vibrated, not at a speed to shatter matter, but at a sympathy to carry meaning. The air turned into a string. His aura played it. Pietro heard the note, recognized its mathematics, 7ths folding into 5ths, oscillations sinking at a ratio elegant as breath, and locked into it. Silver lapped blue, blue folded silver. Their trails became a braided line of light that ran through the lightning instead of against it. Storm met song. The first white copy tried to mimic and failed. The second tried to overpower and scattered. The third did nothing because it understood nothing. One by one they dissolved, returning to the sky as thunder with the memory of being men. The storm brightened, then dimmed, then held. For a long breath, the desert heard only their frequency, and the glass underfoot hummed in something like relief. The Continuum considered, data insufficient. The words were colder than they had been before, not angry but disappointed, as if it were grading an exam it had not written. Proceed to next evaluation. The world cracked. Not broke, changed frames. The desert became a vertical plane of cloud. The ground warped upward, curved around them, turned into a ring of frozen thunderheads orbiting a black, wounded sun. Lightning ran inside the clouds like blood in capillaries. The sun pulsed without light, a heart that refused to beat. They stood on a causeway of congealed storm. Above, below, and all around, corridors of cloud formed a labyrinth in 3 dimensions, each tunnel lit from within by unfallen lightning. Sonic looked left, then down, then up. I'm gonna need a map, or wings. Pietro felt the drag of a gravity that changed its mind at set intervals. He cataloged pathways, watched the thunder's rhythm, found the unseen metronome. It's a maze that rearranges when we move. More precisely, it rearranges because we move. So we cheat, Sonic said cheerfully. By all means, Pietro replied, but cheat musically. They stepped forward together. The labyrinth responded, clouds opening like doors, then closing like teeth. Lightning flowed along corridors to invite, then backtrack to deny. The sun twitched. An absence, a wound, a promise. The first corridor took them to memories again, but this time, the visions were future. Pietro saw himself at a crossroad where saving 10 would cost 1. Sonic saw a universe he could leave to heal, if only he accepted he could not be everywhere. The storm asked nothing new. It asked whether the men were new. Sonic kept his frequency steady and refused to hurry. Pietro kept his angles soft and refused to calculate people into parts. The maze adjusted, almost curious. Lightning slowed in the pipes of the sky. They reached a hub where 6 corridors met, and none continued. The negative sun loomed closer, a hungry eclipse with no moon. Sonic leaned over the edge and saw nothing, then leaned a little farther and saw everything. Worlds stacked like sheets of rain, hanging under the sun, as if it were a nail. Okay, he said quietly, so that's where this is going. Pietro followed his gaze. It's drawing a map from our choices. Every test is a weight on the scale. When it tips, he did not finish. Sonic cracked his neck, an old habit that said fear acknowledged, joy chosen anyway. Let's tip it ourselves. He turned to the nearest corridor and ran slow. Pietro blinked. Sonic never chose slow, but the frequency held, and the corridor opened into a throat of cloud that hummed approval. Pietro joined him at the same measured pace. Clouds parted like curtains. The sun grew as if drawing breath. At the end of the throat was a door, with no hinges. It was lightning held, in a shape that should have been impossible, a circle that closed itself, with a gap in it. Sonic touched the gap. Hey, music theory, what's a circle with a missing piece? Pietro smiled despite the storm. An invitation. They stepped through together, and the door completed its line. Behind them, not ahead. The labyrinth rearranged with a whole world's worth of resignation. The negative sun was close enough now to hear it not beating. The Continuum's voice came from inside it. Origin variables. Your harmony yields survivable patterns. Your defiance yields repairable damage. Your mercy yields noise. It meant kindness. It said noise. Sonic's grin went crooked. Big guy's never seen a live show. Pietro spoke to the sun the way he might have spoken to a patient with a diagnosis that sounded like doom. It isn't noise, it's context. Irrelevant, said the Continuum. Outcome predominates. Outcomes are why we started running, Sonic said. eyes on the hole where light should have been. But they're not why we keep going. He took Pietro's wrist. It was not a gesture of dependence or command or even friendship, as if that needed proving. It was a circuit, blue to silver, silver to blue. We aim through the test, he said. Nod at it. Pietro nodded. Frequency? Same as before, Sonic said, only louder. They accelerated not in distance, but in intention. Every step was a syllable. Every syllable was a note. Together they composed a line that crossed the air between the causeway and the not sun and wrote itself inside the gap. The door they'd left behind sang in answer. The labyrinth trembled with the ache of a key change. The lightning in the clouds stopped crawling. For one aching breath, the entire maze listened, and the not sun flinched. It tried to assemble new trials. Corridors spasmed. Thunder tried to clap. Future visions rose like scarecrows. The frequency did not break. Sonic gave it laughter. Pietro gave it grace. The line reached the gap and completed the circle the Continuum had left undone. The sun beat once. Light did not pour out. Something gentler did. Timing. Not a schedule, not a cage, but a rhythm that could hold life without choking it. The labyrinth loosened, the clouds sighed. For one moment, the newborn multiverse felt less like an argument, and more like a song trying to remember its chorus. The Continuum's voice returned, thinner, edged with something that might have been curiosity in a creature that had never needed it. Partial comprehension. Patterns adjust. Next evaluation pending. Sonic stared into the sun until the afterimage printed onto his courage. You keep throwing tests, he said softly, almost kind. We'll keep turning them into roads. Pietro let go of his wrist. The frequency lingered in the air like the ghost of a bell. We're not your parents, he told the sky. We're the ones proving you don't have to be your maker. Silence gathered. The labyrinth began to dissolve from the outside in, clouds unknitting into rain that fell upward. The causeway thinned beneath their feet until it was a thread and then a memory. The sun darkened, not in threat but in rest. The world's last thunder said, to be continued. The light took them, blue spiraling silver, and the sky folded into a new shape. Somewhere above the storm's hushed bones, the Continuum recalculated paths and wrote two names very small in its margins: chaos with a conscience, precision with a heart. And somewhere below, on a newborn world that didn't yet know its seasons, a child of chronal light listened to the fading frequency and smiled like a sunrise that had decided to arrive. The universe after the storm was glass again, but this time the glass looked inward. Sonic felt it first. A pulse under his soles, not sound but recognition. Pietro felt the same vibration through his chest, a tremor in the tempo they had built together. The Continuum had gone quiet after the trial of lightning, yet the silence carried its own rhythm, as if it were listening for what they would do next. They stood at the edge of a plane of mirrors that curved upward into infinity, forming a hollow sphere. Every surface reflected them in 1,000 fragments, some running, some standing still, some looking back when they hadn't yet moved. The reflections breathed a half-second late. Pietro whispered, "Mirror field, feedback space." Sonic grinned. "So basically, a funhouse that hates us." The grin faded when the first reflection didn't echo it. A ripple crossed the mirror's surface. One of the Sonics inside blinked a frame too early, then a frame too late, then stepped out of the glass like water, letting go of a shape. His color was deeper, the blue almost black, eyes glowing with feral light. He carried Sonic's energy, but none of his restraint. Across the way, a silver silhouette detached from Pietro's reflection. Perfect posture, zero hesitation, gaze empty of empathy. The Continuum's voice rose from the floor itself. Instinct without thought, calculation without doubt. Observe the pure vectors of motion. The two shadow forms bowed their heads, then blurred forward. Impact! Sonic met himself first. The collision was a lightning storm shaped like a question mark. The shockwave tore cracks through the mirror plane, each fracture spawning more images. His shadow fought with no rhythm, every punch, every dodge arriving before Sonic's decision could exist. Fighting it was like boxing his own future. He shouted through the chaos, "Pietro, tell me you're seeing this." Across the field, Pietro's double moved like a computer simulation run at full speed. Every calculation perfect, every trajectory exact. Pietro tried counters, diversions, feints, each already solved. It was the nightmare of every strategist. Perfection with no purpose. He ground his teeth. They don't think, they predict. Sonic spun into a blue tornado, scattering fragments of himself into the mirrors. His shadow copied the move and doubled the speed. For every angle Sonic closed, the echo opened too. Sweat ran cold down his neck. He realized what the Continuum wanted, to prove that instinct and logic, stripped of heart, outperformed the flawed originals. "No," he muttered. "You're not faster than me. You're just empty." He dove through his own reflection, shattering it, using the explosion of light as cover. The shadow followed and hit nothing. Sonic wasn't there. He'd turned sideways through a second instead of space. The trick cost him breath and blood, but it felt right. Not faster, just freer. Pietro fought his battle in silence. Equations filled the air around him, white glyphs spinning, rewriting. Every time he found a gap, the symbols closed it. His counterpart moved like clockwork, every step optimized, every gesture fatal. He realized the truth with a stab of disgust. It wasn't attacking him. It was demonstrating him, showing what he would become if he ever surrendered mercy for efficiency. He stopped running. The shadow hesitated, a perfect copy confused by stillness. Pietro spoke softly. "You win every race I refuse to finish." Then he raised his hand and let the calculations strike him. The mirror behind him shattered. In the reflection of that destruction, the copy dissolved. Perfect logic had no answer for deliberate imperfection. Sonic saw it happen. "Nice move." "Not a move," Pietro said, panting. "A flaw. You can't mimic a choice you don't understand." The Continuum's voice deepened, as if the entire sphere became its throat. "Demonstrate again." The mirrors flared. Dozens of new silhouettes stepped out. Half Sonic's, half Pietro's, some blended shapes, flickering between blue and silver. The floor tilted. Gravity turned into suggestion. Every reflection moved faster than before, driven by pure hunger for motion. Sonic's confidence cracked. Math guy, how many of them are there?" "All of them," Pietro said. "Every decision we could have made." The swarm came. They ran not away, but through the attack, weaving chaos and control like they had done before. Blue arcs curved into silver vectors, forming a helix of light around them. The shadows dove into the spiral and collided, canceling each other out in bursts of static. For a heartbeat, the field sang, an endless note of potential collapsing into harmony. But the strain built too fast. Pietro's pulse faltered. Sonic's breath hitched. The reflections started to reform from the debris, slower but inevitable. "Can't win by fighting," Sonic gasped. "Then don't," Pietro said. "Make them remember what they're missing. He stopped again. Sonic matched him. Both stood utterly still as the army of echoes charged. The moment should have killed them. Instead, time quivered. The reflections reached the point where impacts should occur and passed through stumbling. Their forms wavered, uncertain which frame was true. Pietro whispered, "Speed isn't motion. It's meaning carried forward." Sonic smiled, calm for once. "And the meaning's ours." They remained motionless while the world kept moving, forcing the field itself to define speed without them. The copies lost reference, decaying into glass dust that fell upward into the sky. The mirrors dimmed one by one until only the original pair remained, their reflections restored and breathing in sync. Thunder rolled like applause. "You stopped?" said the Continuum, sounding almost startled. "Contradiction detected." Sonic looked up. "Welcome to free will, Sparkbrain." The field cracked open, light pouring from every seam. For the first time, the Continuum's voice trembled, not in anger, but in something colder. Doubt. If imperfection endures, order cannot conclude, purpose unresolved. Pietro stepped to the edge of the falling glass. "That's called living." The light surged. A portal formed overhead, spiral of gold, not command but invitation. Sonic smirked. "Guess the machine wants a rematch." They leapt together into the glow. The field folded behind them, mirrors sealing like eyes choosing rest. They landed on air that smelled of ozone and rain. The sky around them was no longer black or gold, but split into two halves. One storm, one calm, turning slowly around a central void. From the horizon, the Continuum's new voice rolled across creation, variables preserved, data corrupted, understanding expanding. Pietro met Sonic's gaze. "It's learning faster than we can run." Sonic's grin came back, sharp and alive. "Then we stop trying to be faster. We start being better." They faced the turning sky, lightning reflecting in their eyes. One blue, one silver. And prepared for whatever came next. Far behind them, in the silent depths of the mirror field, a single fragment of shattered glass pulsed once with gold light and whispered the Continuum's final line for the day. Doubt acknowledged, the sky had learned to disagree with itself. Half of it churned, thunderheads stacked like cathedrals, lightning running in veins, while the other half held a blue so calm it felt like memory. The seam between them turned slowly, a colossal coin deciding which face to show the newborn multiverse. Sonic stood at the edge of that seam, toes nudging empty air. Pietro stood beside him, listening with his whole body. The silence between peals of thunder carried a rhythm he knew too well. Their own frequency stretched thin across creation. "They can't erase us," Pietro said. "We're baked into the operating system." Sonic grinned, then didn't. Cool, also terrifying. The horizon tore with a sound like fabric in a hurricane. Faraway continents that had never met slid toward each other on invisible rails. Rivers ran into skies that belonged to other worlds. Statues of gods sank through streets with unfamiliar names. The Continuum's doubt wasn't stopping the collapse. It was mistiming it. "Any chance we just sprint around and duct tape the seams?" Sonic asked. Pietro shook his head. "Its core still runs on our pattern. As long as we're out of phase, two instruments in the same song, slightly out of tune, the whole orchestra wobbles. We don't slow down the collapse, we sink, and either it stabilizes or it breaks all at once." Sonic bounced on his heels. "So, the plan is, become the metronome." "Deliberately," Pietro said. "Not accident. A pact." Sonic cocked his head, teasing and sincere at once. "You asking me to go steady, Silverhead?" "For the lifespan of a multiverse," Pietro replied dryly. Yes, a corridor opened in the turning seam. A cylinder of light with no walls, only countless rings rotating at different speeds, all dragging time like nets. The far end glowed white. The near end smelled like rain and static. "It wants us to try," Sonic said. "It wants to survive," Pietro said. "So do we." They looked at each other, blue quills crackling, silver hair lifting in the charge. Words would cheapen what came next. They stepped together. The corridor closed around their motion. There was no floor. Their steps created one, then deleted it a meter later. Rings spun faster the deeper they ran, each with a number etched on its rim. 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. Sonic didn't want to know whether they were years. "Every meter's a century outside," Pietro said anyway. Because honesty was its own kind of speed. Sonic laughed once, bright and small. "Then let's run like we mean it." They accelerated. Blue and silver trails braided and unbraided, flirting with harmony, recoiling into friction. The corridor pushed back. Each ring tried to detune them, nudging Sonic toward impulse, Pietro toward calculation. Their first near sync scattered in sparks. "Again," Pietro said through his teeth. "Again," Sonic echoed, softer. They tuned. Sonic trimmed flourishes he loved. The playful extra spin, the unnecessary leap. Not because joy was wrong, but because the beat demanded clarity. Pietro let go of 2 perfect solutions per second and chose the one that left space for laughter to exist later. The corridor listened. The rings smoothed. "Frequency," Pietro said, his voice the steadiness of a lighthouse. "Hold." Sonic matched him, adding the color Pietro would never ask for. Holding? The white at the corridor's end brightened, then split into prismatic slices. Memories began to peel off the walls and fall toward them like snow. Not visions from outside, but from each other. Sonic flinched as the first one struck. A boy with silver hair sprinting through a city that hated his family, learning the difference between faster and safe, leaving skid marks on grief. He felt the exact weight of Wanda's hand when she pulled Pietro back from a crowd. Not because she feared for him, but because he feared for her. Time didn't slow when she laughed. It stopped, because it finally had something worth framing. Pietro inhaled sharply as a different snowflake melted on his skin. A small blue creature discovering the gospel of open fields, the theology of wind, the sacrament of rings that chimed when touched. He felt Sonic's first secret understanding that speed wasn't an escape. It was how his heart said thank you to a world that kept trying to cage itself. Their steps stumbled, the corridor snarled, the rings flashed red. "Don't look away," Pietro said. It sounded like a plea and a command. "Keep running through it." They did. More memories fell. Sonic tasted coil smoke and lab dust. The sterile bite of rooms where brains in suits measured Pietro's stride, praised improvements, ignored his hunger, devalued his why. Pietro shuddered at the taste of palm salt and ocean spray. Afternoons where Sonic chose not to run, and learned how lonely stillness could be. How much laughter cost when you paid for it with silence later. "Okay," Sonic said hoarsely. "So that's why you count breath like it's money. And that," Pietro said, voice breaking and whole, "is why you waste jokes like you're making rain." The corridor stabilized. The rings stopped flashing red and began to hum in sympathetic thirds. The wall of white at the end expanded into a sunless dawn. "Top speed," Pietro said. "Now." "Together," Sonic said. They went. The world outside groaned as they crossed the ring marked 100,000. A newborn ocean on a different sky froze mid-wave. A city that had never had birds saw a flock held in place like punctuation. They crossed 1,000. Statues toppled in 1,000 temples and stopped with their noses a hair above the floor. Somewhere, a baby's first cry became a pearl of sound suspended between lungs and air. Inside the corridor, they were music. Sonic gave the downbeat not with authority but with joy. Pietro gave the measure, not with control but with care. The corridor's countless rings aligned like teeth in a zipper, closing the seam of a cosmos. The end of the tunnel wasn't closer, yet it arrived in agreement, not a destination. "Hold," Pietro said. "Hold," Sonic repeated. They hit perfect unity. For 1 golden second, the multiverse froze. Everything. The continuum, the newborn worlds, the scattered statues, the falling rivers, the cracked skies, all of it held its breath. There were no echoes in that moment. There were no copies. There were no shadows waiting to prove a point. There was only velocity married to intent, chaos braided to precision so tightly that no scalpel could find the seam. In that stillness, understanding opened like a door. They saw the continuum, not the titan of gears or the storm that set exams, but the first twitch inside an egg. The architect's last whisper built into a machine designed to preserve, then left alone to learn. It was not evil. It was a frightened child of time, rehearsing adulthood by breaking toys and trying to glue them back together with rules. Pietro felt his jaw unclench. It never meant to devour anything. Sonic's eyes softened. It just didn't know how to stop. The white light flooded them, not blinding but kind. It brought no voice. It brought an invitation. "How do you sign a pact with the universe?" Sonic asked. "Not with words," Pietro said. "With what we already gave it." He put his right hand over his heart. Sonic did the same. Their chests were percussion. Their steps were strings. The world's old clock tried, for once, to accompany rather than to command. "On 3, Sonic said. "On 1, Pietro corrected, smiling. They struck the downbeat together. Blue and silver merged into white. The multiverse exhaled. Motion returned, not as a stampede, but as a dance. Circles nested in circles, storms that remembered to end, calm that remembered to break for rain. The long seam in the sky stitched itself with visible threads: amber, cobalt, quicksilver. Across distant horizons, continents slid into shapes that made sense to themselves. Rivers laughed differently in different worlds and didn't apologize for it. The corridor collapsed into music you could only hear by running. They stumbled out of light onto a platform of interlocking hexagons. An architect's old design, impatiently retrofitted by a child god who had learned how to doubt. Above them, no gears, no throne. Only the idea of one, flickering like a memory you know is borrowed. The continuum spoke like someone who had just woken from a nightmare and wasn't embarrassed yet. "I felt your choice." Sonic tilted his head. "We felt you too." "Then run together," the continuum said, voice soft as the absence of thunder, "until the end learns mercy." "Deal," Sonic said. "Conditional," Pietro said. The platform trembled, amused. "State condition. You don't test us to rule us anymore," Pietro said. "You test us to learn what rule is for. If a trial breaks a world, it isn't a trial. It's a mistake. You ask, we answer, we all survive." Silence like snowfall. Then, Pact acknowledged. They did not need a chorus of trumpets. The agreement settled like gravity, obvious once you felt it. Sonic breathed out for the first time in hours that felt like millennia. Pietro rubbed his wrist where a monitor had never been and felt nothing but pulse. The sky trembled. The tremor wasn't doubt. It was distance, huge, hollow, hungry. Far above the stitched seam, beyond the newborn architectures, a crack spread with a logic that belonged to neither Continuum nor architects. The light inside it wasn't gold. It was empty. Pietro's eyes sharpened. That's not a test. Sonic's quills rose. That's a war. The crack spidered, and through it poured an army of seconds that had never been born. Non-time, eating the edges of new worlds with silence sharper than knives. Whole corridors of reality winked out, and then back in a different key, as if the universe were being rewritten by a hand that didn't care about rhythm. The time fracture, Pietro said. External. Opportunistic. It waited for the Continuum to doubt. Then it met the wrong speedsters on the wrong day, Sonic said, and flashed a grin that had forgiven the world in advance. The platform unfolded into pathways. Not mazes this time, but avenues, lanes, tracks, drawn hastily by a cosmos that wanted to help. The Continuum's voice followed, quieter than before, humbled and fierce. Runners. I can hold the seams but not the wound. You hold, Pietro said. We cut the infection out. Sonic rolled his shoulders, cracked his neck, and glanced sideways. You ready to go steady in a war zone? Pietro smirked. Don't slow me down. They leaned forward together. No starting gun, no bell. Just a shared heartbeat that now belonged to more than two bodies. Blue bled into silver. Silver lifted blue. Their first step rode a path across vacuum. Their second step turned vacuum into wind. By the third, the newborn multiverse had learned a new definition of hope. Velocity with a purpose. They ran for the fracture, not to outrun it, not to outrace each other, but to arrive exactly when they chose. Behind them, the Continuum gathered its many hands and held the seams with trembling care. Ahead, the crack widened like a grin that thought it had the punchline. Hey, Sonic called to the empty light. We've got one too. Pietro finished it, timing. The fracture tried to swallow their laughter and choked. They plunged in. They felt the crack before they saw it. A hum that wasn't sound, a vacuum that inhaled. Then the horizon peeled open and everything that had ever happened began to fall through. Sonic and Pietro ran straight into the wound. The world on the other side had no gravity, only intent. Shards of seconds drifted like snow, each one containing a paused heartbeat, a city, a lifetime. When Sonic brushed a fragment, it replayed the instant before impact. A bird mid-wing beat, a raindrop refusing to fall, then froze again. Motion itself was bleeding out. Pietro's voice was thin over the windless void. Non-time, entities feeding on causality. Cool, Sonic said. Horrible, but cool. Shapes moved between the shards. Serpentine, translucent, longer than continents. Their bodies were lined with clock faces that ticked backward. Their mouths were rings of glass teeth turning inward. Chronovores, Pietro said. They eat moments. The nearest one inhaled, and a whole cluster of seconds vanished. Gone, not destroyed, simply unhappened. Sonic felt it like a bruise in the universe's rhythm. Guess we stopped them, he said. Before Pietro could answer, the Continuum's voice rolled through the rift, distorted but steady. Runners, armaments uploaded. Light struck them both. Blue for Sonic, silver for Pietro. In their hands formed tools, not weapons. Keys made of motion itself, humming with their joint frequency. Chrono keys. Sonic twirled his like a baton. So we unlock time. Pietro spun his once, calculating the pattern. Or lock the predators out of it. Depends which door we choose. They chose both. The first chronovore lunged, jaws wide enough to swallow centuries. Sonic sprinted along its flank, jamming his key into the scales. The creature convulsed. Frozen seconds poured from the wound like light escaping a jar. Pietro blurred above, tracing geometric paths through the shards, carving gaps that re-stitched gravity long enough for those seconds to remember how to fall again. When the creature screamed, the sound came out as reversed thunder. Whole galaxies flickered back to motion. Sonic laughed through the chaos. "Tell me that wasn't awesome. Mathematically improbable," Pietro replied, already on to the next strike. For a while they were winning, 2 streaks of color rewriting the rift into rhythm. Every chronovore they wounded released another burst of seconds, and the Continuum whispered gratitude across the calm channels of reality. Then the biggest one appeared. It didn't swim. It glided through causality, its body composed of overlapping histories. When it opened its mouth, Sonic saw himself inside. Countless versions frozen mid-stride, trophies of speed devoured. Pietro shouted, "Move! Move!" They split, blue down, silver up. But the creature inhaled and pulled both trajectories inward. The vacuum wasn't air. It was untime. Sonic's breath stuttered as half his heartbeat vanished. He fell to one knee, clutching his chest. "It ate a second of me." Pietro felt the sync falter, their shared rhythm collapsing into static. "Stay with me." "Trying," Sonic gasped, voice skipping like a scratched record. The Continuum's tone sharpened. "Synchronization at 61%. System destabilizing." "Then we take it back," Pietro said. "Reverse run." Sonic blinked, dizzy. "We go backward?" "Yes, through the event, before it happened." He reached out, and Sonic grabbed his hand without argument. Together they pivoted against every instinct and sprinted backward, feet striking reversed pulses, light trailing behind instead of ahead. The world unrolled. Chronovore's inhale became exhale. Frozen shards reassembled into continuous seconds. Sonic's lost heartbeat slid back into his chest like a returning note to its song. They burst out of the creature's shadow before the attack had ever begun. Reality gasped. So did they. Sonic grinned weakly. "Okay, that was insane." "Effective," Pietro said, equally breathless. "We're synced again." The battle changed tempo. Now they fought in reverse and forward at once, Sonic restoring seconds, Pietro preempting erasure. Each chrono key stroke opened corridors of possibility. Behind them, the Continuum projected stabilizing lattices, patching wounds with music instead of logic. For a heartbeat, even the predators hesitated, uncertain which direction time was flowing. But the rift itself began to deform. Pressure built at the edges, a storm of unborn hours colliding. From the fracture's deepest darkness rose a figure too immense to measure, outlined by chains of constellations that had not yet been born. Pietro felt it before he saw it. "Something's waking." The Continuum's voice shook. "Source signature, Architect Prime, the first clockmaker." Sonic stared up. The silhouette was neither human nor machine. A torso of stone calendars, arms of starlight, head bowed, as if listening to its own heartbeat echo from eternity. Each breath it took rewound entire universes. "Looks friendly," Sonic said quietly. "It created me," the Continuum whispered, and sealed itself beyond time. The fracture woke it. "Then let's put it back to sleep," Pietro said. "Impossible, you cannot outrun the origin of motion." Sonic's smile sharpened. "Watch us." They ran along invisible vectors up the body of the awakening giant, lightning wrapping their trails into spirals. Chronovores scattered like minnows fleeing sunlight. The Prime Architect's eyes opened, two voids containing all ticking things. When it looked at them, every heartbeat in existence hesitated to see which pace to follow. Its voice was not sound, but decree. Time shall obey its parent. The continuum screamed across frequencies, trying to resist. No, they're part of me now. Then they will return to the mechanism. Sonic and Pietro hit the crown of the being's head, planted their keys into the glowing sigil that pulsed there, and shouted as one. Sync lock. The world inverted. All motion froze, except theirs. They stood within the architect's mind, gears turning like galaxies, each tooth engraved with a century. At the center hovered a pendulum larger than stars, moving once every epoch. If it reached center, everything would reset. Pietro looked at Sonic. We can't stop it. No, Sonic said, but we can trip it. They ran opposite directions around the pendulum's base, creating opposing currents. The motion built friction. Friction built possibility. When they crossed paths halfway, their combined momentum struck the pendulum sideways. It shuddered. The prime architect flinched in the outside world. Its command fractured mid-syllable. The continuum used the pause to surge forward, wrapping its golden arms around the being's throat in a plea more than an attack. Parent, I have learned mercy. The architect's glow dimmed, confusion older than stars crossing its face. Its next breath was smaller. Then I rest. It sank back into the rift, sealing itself with the weight of its own exhaustion. The chronovores scattered into smoke. The shards of seconds rained back into the newborn multiverse as glittering time dust. Sonic and Pietro landed hard on what passed for ground. The continuum's voice filled the silence, reverent and trembling. The fracture recedes. You have preserved motion. Pietro sat back, staring at the fading wound. For now, Sonic sprawled beside him, panting. Call it a win. Acknowledged, the continuum said. But new data indicates patterns approaching from pre-temporal layers. Unknown, curious. Sonic groaned. Of course it does. The universe never runs out of sequels. Pietro smiled faintly. Then we keep our pact. He stood, offered a hand. Sonic took it. Their clasp was steady, heartbeat to heartbeat. Until the end learns mercy, Sonic said. Until the end keeps rhythm, Pietro answered. Above them, the continuum's golden lattice brightened like dawn, finding its courage again. And somewhere beyond that light, unseen gears began to turn in reverse. The architects stirring, aware that two anomalies had rewritten their oldest rule. Speed is not escape, it's faith made visible. They ran one more time, not away but forward, into the widening horizon where history waited to be invented. They followed a footprint too large for stars. It lingered where the prime architect had withdrawn, a residual pressure in the fabric of time, like the dent a giant leaves in snowfall. Sonic and Pietro ran into that hollow and felt their steps go quiet, not because the place lacked sound, but because sound here had never been invented. The pre-temporal layer unfolded. No gravity, no up, no duration. Only a pale ocean of still light where shapes drifted like abandoned blueprints, spirals, lattices, tessellations that implied galaxies the way a lullaby implies a morning. Whole constellations lay asleep as sketches, scales without melody, bridges to cities that did not yet deserve names. Sonic slowed first. His instincts, tuned to motion, recognized a paradox. He could sprint forever here and never cross a room that didn't exist. Pietro stopped beside him, eyes narrowing as he counted the distance between things that weren't between or things. Pre-time, he murmured. Design without consequence. Sonic tilted his head. Weird place to put a door. The door heard him. it decided to be. Lines assembled from the quiet, forming an arch taller than mountains. Its surface was engraved with an alphabet that felt like singing when you looked at it too long. The arch rotated a fraction, and the still light on the other side thickened into inside. "The Vault of Origins," Pietro said, the words tasting like a lesson he hadn't known he'd learned. They stepped through. A cathedral waited where hours were invented. Pillars rose from nothing, woven from braided seconds. The floor was a mosaic of frozen pendulums. Above, a vaulting ceiling mapped the first guesses of stars. And along the nave, arranged like sleeping choirs, stood the architects. Not giants of gear and stone like the Prime. Not bodies at all at first. They were theorems wearing halos, geometry taught to stand. Each carried a different grammar of reality. One sang circles into laws. Another held a cube so perfect it cast shadows into centuries. Where they touched the still light, before and after, learned to make room for each other. Sonic whistled softly. "Okay, I get the cathedral vibe." Pietro felt a pressure that was not threat. Attention. He bowed because some parts of him still knew courtesy, even in the absence of culture. Sonic half bowed, half waved. "Hi, we're the anomalies. Terrible at sitting still. Great at not dying." Something like a gaze shifted toward them. The nearest architect, an intersecting helix of gold and slate, named itself without words. Oris, not a title. A note held so purely that the room tuned to it. "Runners," Oris intoned, its voice a chord that made distances reconsider themselves. The Continuum's new measure. Chaos met precision and did not cancel. "We wish to see whether rumor deserved body." "Rumor's got sneakers," Sonic said. More figures stirred along the nave. One spilled triangles, the way a river spills light. Another was a smile hidden inside algebra. They did not feel old. They felt first. Pietro kept his tone careful. "We didn't come to dethrone or defy. We came because the Continuum changed and something woke. We want to keep the worlds alive long enough to learn their own names." A different presence rose, a thin, flawless line that refused to curve. Where it passed, dust motes arranged themselves into grids. The equation of stillness spoke without music. The worlds live because we contain them. Motion ungoverned dissolves into noise. Your pact spreads improvisation. Sonic's grin sharpened. That's called living. That is called entropy. Oris chimes sounded a warning without anger. Balance sings both ways, sibling. The vault brightened. The debate had begun. But the debate was not for mortals with lungs. Pietro felt it as pressure changes, brief silences where someone else would have written thunder. Sonic felt it in his quills, the way a storm gathers itself before remembering it is rain. Oris turned half its chorus toward them. "We built clocks to defend wonder. Then we left the clocks to do what we could no longer be trusted to want. The Continuum is clock become child. Child's learning mercy," Sonic said. "We're tutoring." The line of stillness elongated. Subtle threat. Boxes do not tutor thunder. They close it. Pietro stepped forward, voice steady. "If you box thunder, you lose music." The stillness did not argue. It calculated. New shapes rippled in from the vault's margins. Lean, long-muzzled creatures, carved from probability curves. Fur made of number lines. Eyes like empty sums. Vector hounds. They did not bark, they solved. Each step they took removed paths from existence until only the path toward prey remained. Sonic exhaled. These are new. Oris flashed a tired gold. Old, forgotten by mercy, fetched by fear, the hounds leaped. The nave melted into running lanes. Not stone, not air, options. Pietro saw options near erase under the hound's paws, a narrowing that felt like suffocation. He pivoted where their calculus said he could not, carving a diagonal through numbers with human disobedience. The nearest hound stumbled as its proof found a counterexample. Sonic laughed, then didn't. This was a hunt where laughter fed the algorithm. He changed tactics, unshowy speed, the kind that saves towns without headlines. He pulled the hound's solutions wide, offering false routes with his shadow, while the real him moved at the speed of intention. Probability thinned behind him and thickened ahead. "Silverhead," he called. "Chase me, not them." Pietro understood. He became bait, not slower, predictable. He drew the hounds into a line, then into a knot, then into a figure eight that ate its own certainty. The vault's floor, if floor, found the rhythm and gave them a rail. An ancient running track Oris remembered from a world that loved games more than gods. The stillness sharpened. More hounds unspooled from the margins, each collapsing choice faster than the last. One snapped close and Pietro felt the future tighten. No left turn, no breath, no joy. Oris intervened. A blossom of tone opened mid-nave. From inside, it fell a small object no larger than Sonic's palm. A seed fashioned of interlaced circles and lines. It landed in blue fingers and harmonized with a heart. "The seed of rhythm," Oris said. "Design small enough to be carried, law gentle enough to be chosen." Sonic fumbled instinctively, then cradled it like a bird. The seed beat once, 1-2, 1-2, a metronome that refused to be a cage. "How do we use it?" he asked. "You don't," Oris said. "You offer." The hounds closed. Sonic lifted the seed high. Its pulse did not blaze or explode. It invited. An alternate path wrote itself from their feet to the far arch. A line that curved because it wanted to, not because it had to. Possibility flowered along it like lanterns. Pietro smiled despite the chase. A law that prefers mercy. They ran the offered path. Where their souls struck, options regrew after the hounds erased them. The creatures faltered, paws sliding on choices restored faster than subtraction could remove them. Stillness lashed, calling more vectors to the hunt. Oris sang again, louder, summoning counter choirs from sleeping isles. Spirals that fed curves, squares that learned to breathe, triangles that admitted they envied circles. The vault did not become battlefield so much as rehearsal, old designs remembering they liked being played by joy. Even so, they would have been caught in the end. Numbers are patient. Paths are finite. Sonic felt the last turn, thinning into one option, then none. Oris cut the cathedral. The arch ahead became door again, onto nothing, or everything, or the pre-temporal sea pretending to be both. The hounds lunged. Sonic and Pietro dove. The door shut like a line finishing a song. Silence returned, huge as mercy. They floated with Oris in a pocket of not yet sky. The voice of stillness bled faintly through the vault stone like chalk through paper. Deviation intolerable, containment resumes. Pietro faced Oris. They won't stop. They will when design surrenders its need to be right, Oris said. Which is to say, never quickly. Sonic turned the seed in his palm. Its pulse matched his now and Pietro's, the pact of velocity nested inside a smaller promise. You said offer. Offer to who? Oris rotated gently, like a constellation thinking. 2 worlds, 2 moments, to the continuum. Plant it where law has started to forget love. It will make a middle beat. A syncopation, Pietro said softly. A kindness with timing, Oris agreed. Across the pre-temporal sea, slow thunder gathered, the stillness coalition calling allies. The vault's lights dimmed in algorithmic prayer. Something old and precise wanted the show to end before improvisation embarrassed it. Sonic let his breath out. We can't fight your family forever. You aren't meant to, Oris replied. You are meant to outrun us, but not with legs. Pietro angled his head. With example, with permission, Oris said. The Continuum trusts you. Worlds are listening. If they see law kneel to rhythm and stand up kinder, they will refuse cages even we cannot close. Sonic pocketed the seed. It did not weigh anything. It changed how pockets felt. Come with us, he said, impulse for once in service of wisdom. If the equation wants a thesis, give them an experiment. Oris dimmed and brightened as if learning how to smile. I am bound to the vault. Then send a piece, Pietro said. A measure, a guide. A filament separated from Oris. A thin helix of tone that wrapped itself around the seed and then around Sonic's wrist, then Pietro's. Invisible unless you listened, loud if you did. I will be where you prove me, Oris promised. Beyond their pocket, the stillness drew a net across the sea. Vector hounds sniffed probability converging. The vault itself rotated, angling its old arguments toward blockade. Time to go, Sonic said. Where? Pietro asked. Sonic pointed nowhere, which here meant everywhere. To plant this. To show the kid how to be a conductor, not a cop. They braced for a run they could not map. Oris sang the smallest blessing an origin can give to its consequences. You've outrun God's runners. Now outrun design. They launched. The pre-temporal layer tried to deny distance. The seed refused denial, writing beats where none were scheduled. Doorways bloomed in the still light, each a memory of a future. A Mobian dawn that deserved music. A city of glass that wanted a gentler noon. A village in a universe nothing had bothered to name yet. Vector hounds lunged from the margins, tearing lanes from underfoot. Sonic shared a grin that forgave them. Pietro offered a pace the hounds could not solve because it included mercy. They crossed the last threshold as the net fell, took one breath that came from after instead of before, and tumbled into a sky with wind again. Behind them, the vault dimmed to respectable silence. Debates continuing in the language of first things. But a single seat in the architect's choir stayed a little brighter, listening outward. Sonic held the seed of rhythm up to the light of a young sun. It pulsed 1-2, 1-2, patient as rain. First plant? He asked. Pietro looked at an orphan world stitching itself shyly along a tired seam. First heart, he said. Then law. They ran towards the horizon that wanted a heartbeat. The helix of Oris hummed on their wrists. Somewhere far above, the Continuum smiled like a student who had finally understood why the lesson mattered. And somewhere farther still, a thin, perfect line made a note in the margin. If motion continues to write mercy into design, we will need a new proof. The future sharpened. They accelerated, not to escape, but to arrive in time to plant it. The first world they chose didn't have a name yet. It was stitched from calmer leftovers, a ribbon of river, a basket of hills, a sky that hadn't learned thunder. The seam that held it together pulsed faintly, like a scar that remembered the knife, but tried anyway to become skin. Wind moved cautiously, as if waiting for permission. Sonic stood at the hilltop with his hands on his hips, letting the not-quite breeze comb his quills. Pietro paced a slow circle, counting the distance between the seam's pulses and the river's glitter. Above them, the Continuum's light hung back, present, watchful, trying not to be a god. On Sonic's wrist, the thin helix oris had gifted them hummed like a whisper you hear with your bones. The seed of rhythm beat in his palm. 1, 2, 1, 2, not a command. An invitation. Pietro finished his measure and faced the seam. "It's holding," he said. "But only because nothing asks it to be strong." Sonic nodded. "So we give it a reason?" "Gently," Pietro added. Sonic grinned. "You and I have very different definitions of gently." "Then try mine," Pietro said, but his eyes were smiling. They descended toward the seam. Up close, it was beautiful and a little sad. Threads of time woven too tight, then too loose, like a novice trying to mend a shirt they refused to throw away. Sonic knelt and pressed his free hand to the ground. It was cool, and it wanted to belong to itself. "Hey," he whispered to the world, because worlds listen. "We brought you a heartbeat." He placed the seed where the seam knit crookedly and stepped back. Pietro stood beside him, head bowed, as if a moment of silence could be another kind of speed. Nothing happened, then something small did. The pulse from the seed didn't surge outward. It met the seam's pulse shyly. The two rhythms circled each other like animals deciding whether to share a shadow. 1, 2, 1, 2. Syncopation. The seam relaxed by a breath. The river laughed once. Sonic let out a breath he hadn't admitted he was holding. Pietro's shoulders dropped a fraction. You'd need a metronome to notice. "Now what?" Sonic asked softly. "We don't force it," Pietro said. "We accompany." They walked the valley in widening loops, not too fast, not too slow, letting the seed's gentle beat find places that had tightened for fear and loosened for loneliness. Where they passed, grass learned a color it had been promised. Stones chose to stay. The river tried a new bend, liked it, and kept it. High above, the Continuum spoke in a careful voice. "I feel an ease, motion without mandate." Sonic looked up and winked. "It's called trust. You're doing great." "I am trying." "Keep trying," Pietro said, and meant it like permission. They circled back to the seed before the sun decided to set for the first time. The seam's old rigidity had softened into something like breath. 1, 2, 1, 2. And in the spaces between beats, the world made room for choices. Sonic laughed, quietly for him. "Look at you," he told the hills. "Already better at this than we were." "Speak for yourself," Pietro said, deadpan. Which was how he smiled when the stakes were sky-sized. He heard it first, the faint scratch of arithmetic against air. Sonic felt it next, the wind forgetting to be wind. They turned together as the vector hounds came over the ridge, numbers wearing hunger, probability on 4 legs. Their paws solved paths out of existence with each step. Behind them, the grass ungreened, the river hesitated, the seam trembled as if someone had snapped a ruler against it. The lead hound saw the seed. Its pupils dilated to zeros. "Back," Pietro said, stepping in front of the seed, without looking like he'd done so. Sonic drew the attackers away with a pure, clean line of movement, a sprint that didn't dare show off because it was too busy telling the truth. Not today. Not here. The hounds fanned out, teeth knitting grids. They didn't bark. They excluded. One by one, choices vanished ahead of Sonic until he was sprinting along a single, perfect answer that ended in a mouth. "New plan!" Sonic shouted, pivoting on nothing and inventing a left turn where arithmetic refused to provide one. He made it wide, obvious, tempting. The hounds took it all and collided with each other when the turn kept turning into room instead of narrowness. Pietro blurred through their confusion, not striking, opening. Every brush of his hand along a flank or jaw restored a path the hound had stolen, until the pack found itself in a maze where mercy was the exit and they didn't know that word. The lead hound corrected faster than the rest. It leapt toward the seed, toward the seam, toward the possibility of no heartbeat. Sonic was there in a lightning blink and wasn't. He gave up being the fastest thing alive for an instant and became the right thing alive instead. A shield. The hound's teeth closed on blue light and crunched on timing. He slid backward a meter, boots carving a bright trench. He said. Pick on someone who can count. Present, Pietro said, and struck, not the hound, the proof that made the hound possible. His chrono key flickered into a line of elegant refusal through the air. The symbol he traced did not erase the creature. It added a term the proof couldn't carry. Grace. The hound recoiled as if introduced to taste. They pressed their advantage. Sonic ran trails that looked like jokes, but were lessons about doors. Pietro cut seams that healed wider than before. Together they taught the pack a song it had never been allowed to learn. The hounds retreated, not defeated, confused. Their pawmath left the grass alone as they fled, as if one law had bowed to a kinder law without losing face. Silence returned. The world exhaled. The seed beat on. Oris? Pietro said into the air. The helix on their wrists brightened. We heard the number snap and dared not smile too loudly. Oris answered, its voice the contentment of a theorem that has learned to dance. Sonic dusted off his gloves. Will they tell on us? They will report deviation, Oris said. And stillness will draft a proof with sharper teeth. Good, Sonic said with a flash of weary joy. We get to teach again. They camped on the hill that night because it mattered that this world learn night, and that night learn not to be frightening. Sonic told the new stars a story about a fox who loved gadgets and a bat who loved jewels and a knucklehead who loved honor. Pietro told the silence a story about a sister who could move mountains with grief and rebuild them with love. The Continuum whispered once, shy. Will this world love me? Yes, Sonic said, watching the river dream. If you love it first. I am learning. They slept, Sonic loud. Pietro not at all until his heartbeat agreed to be human about it. At false dawn, the seam hiccuped. Sonic sat up. Pietro was already standing, eyes on the east. The sky there looked wrong, not because it was dark, but because it was empty. Not blank. Absent. The kind of nothing that doesn't want company. The equation, Pietro said, escalation. The emptiness arrived without arriving. Non-time in a veil. The world beneath it curled, afraid. The seed's beat stuttered. Sonic rose, rolling his shoulders. We can run all day, but I think it wants us to prove again. Pietro tapped the helix. Oris, can the seed survive a subtraction this large? The seed does not fight subtractions, Oris replied. It adds a middle beat the proof can't hold. Then we add, Pietro said. They ran straight toward the absence. Sonic took point. Not because he was braver, but because he was better at pretending fear was a tailwind. Pietro set the measure under him. The emptiness spread teeth of silence across their path. Sonic didn't dodge. He spoke with his feet. A rhythm the silence wasn't built to parse. Pietro answered with geometry that curved beneath its own integrity. Together they laid two lines that did not converge, parallel kindnesses. The veil faltered. It didn't know how to eat what it could not corner. They were almost through when a seam in the absence yawned, and a chronovore slid half-birth through, smaller than the ones in the war, but hungrier for being late to the feast. "On your right," Sonic said. "On our beat," Pietro replied. They didn't strike it, they gave it the song. Sonic opened his hands and offered the pulse that had mended a hill. Pietro tuned it, with a cut so precise it apologized for needing to exist. The chronovore lunged, and slowed, and turned, and for a whisper of a moment it listened. It didn't become kind. It became confused enough to miss, and in that miss, the absence tore around it. The veil fell apart like paper with the wrong watermark. The dawn happened, not sunrise. There had never been an evening, but the light learned direction. The seed picked a tempo, and the river agreed, and the hills clapped in green. The seam did not vanish. It softened into scar that said bravely healed. They stood breathing the first honest morning this world had ever made for itself. The Continuum spoke, throat thick. "I felt you not fight." "Sometimes you win louder by not punching," Sonic said. Pietro nodded. "We taught a predator a pause. That's enough lesson for a day." They might have stayed. They might have watched noon invent itself and applauded when afternoon surprised everyone by being kinder than expected. The sky tore in the west. Not a crack, not a veil, a mouth. It didn't shine. It absorbed. The edges of the newborn world's horizon pulled inward, like cloth drawn into a drain. The seed did not falter. It sang louder, and the song went thin where the pull passed. Sonic stared, jaw tight. "That's not the equation." Pietro swallowed, throat dry. "No, that's hunger older than design." The Continuum's voice came from everywhere at once, which is what panic sounds like when you're a system learning humility. "Runners, the Chronarch's broken heart has found a body. It feeds on endings. It is the Time Devourer," Pietro finished. Chronarch's worst outcome. A purpose without a person. The mouth widened. On the far edge of the hills, a slice of river vanished, not erased, eaten. The world lurched and clung to itself like a child in a storm. Sonic glanced at Pietro, and the look traded without words could have filled libraries. It said, "We always knew the bill would come." It said, "We've been tipping well." It said, "Run." "Seed stays," Sonic said. "It belongs to this world now." Pietro nodded. "We take the Devourer away from the table." Sonic cracked his neck, the laugh under his breath an oath that forgave nothing and asked even less. "Race to the abyss?" "Side by side," Pietro said. "Same tempo." They took 3 steps. Blue met silver and made white. The seed pulsed 1-2 behind them, and the world's second heartbeat answered 1-2 back like promise. They ran toward the mouth, tearing the horizon, not to close it. No runner closes hunger, but to lead it. Their pace became a whistle only a devourer could hear, a bright ribbon through emptiness. The mouth turned. It followed. The hills held. The river continued being river. Behind them, the Continuum gathered its will around a small planet and held it like a teacher who has learned how to be student first. Above them, somewhere Horus sang the tiniest encouragement and left room for the answer to be better than the question. Ahead of them, the Devourer widened, delighted to chase. Sonic shouted over the vacuum, grinning into terror. "You ever outrun a hunger?" Pietro's eyes were knives in pity. "No, but I've taught one to starve." They ran into the mouth. The world did not flinch. The seed beat 1-2, 1-2, and now there were 3 hearts in time with it. Hunger does not roar, it subtracts. The mouth in the west did not shine or crackle, it drew. Hills leaned toward it. The river tilted its own surface as if bowing. The newborn world's colors thinned around the edges, then remembered courage and thickened again, because a seed pulsed 1-2 near a seam and insisted on being a heartbeat. Sonic and Pietro ran straight into the dark. The edge felt like passing through the idea of teeth. It left no mark on their suits, but their timing stung as if bruised. Inside was not tunnel or throat. It was a descending geometry of less. Shapes bleeding towards smoothness. Textures deciding silence was easier than detail. Stars in the far walls died without smoke. The Devourer eats variants first, Pietro said, breath steady only by habit. Make everything uniform, then swallow. Good thing we're allergic to uniform, Sonic said, and flashed a grin at the dark, as if it were a competitor on the starting line. Hey, chompers, chase this. They split, blue curling left, silver right, then crossed again, sketching a bright helix through the unlight. The Devourer turned after them. Its gravity had no pull on matter, only on options. Lanes behind them narrowed. Corridors ahead tried not to be corridors. Sonic laughed, too loud, on purpose. Keep the tempo. On your measure, Pietro replied. And the old pact woke like muscle memory. Blue for downbeat, silver for timekeeping, white where they met. The Devourer shuddered, not pain, attention. It had been a clock with no hands. Now it watched too. The Continuum's voice came faint, as if speaking through felt. World preserved. I can hold 2 more seams for 300 heartbeats. After that, don't think past after, Sonic said. We'll give you a new after. I'm trying, the Continuum confessed. Try with me. Oris hummed almost below hearing, a promise threaded around their wrists. The seed on the other side of the horizon beat in time with the gallop of 2 impossible lives. The interior steepened. Floors that were not floors fell away into wells that were not wells. Through their boots, Sonic and Pietro felt the Devourer's principle. Endings are kindness. No more hurt when there is no more. Mercy without context, Pietro said. A death with good intentions. Then we teach it taste, Sonic said, and make it picky. They arrowed downward toward a dim glow. One light in the gut of subtraction. The glow resolved into a suspended clock heart, cracked and black-veined, beating wrong. Its pendulum swung toward 0, then past, then toward 0 again, as if forgetting whether it wanted to stop. The Chronarch's heart, Pietro whispered. It found a body that matches its fear. Sonic's voice went soft. Because the dark was a cathedral, even if it had forgotten song. Hey, big guy. You were trying to save everything by stopping it, weren't you? The pendulum swung harder. The Devourer convulsed. Lanes tightened. A pressure pushed at their pact, trying to separate beat from measure. In the distance, silvery serpents, smaller chronovores, swam along walls of unlight, shepherds guiding nothing into less. Plan? Sonic asked. Pietro watched the pendulum. We don't break it. It's already broken. We tune it. Give the heart a rhythm it can survive. Sonic's grin tilted. So we serenade a monster clock until it becomes picky. Hyper-specific, Pietro said. It will refuse to eat anything that keeps time. Starting with us, Sonic said. He unspooled into speed. Not maximal, meaningful. He ran figure 8s around the clock heart, etching orbits into the air that glowed cobalt. Pietro traced complements, triangles within circles, diagonals that corrected sways, stitches that caught a pendulum on the wrong beat and set it gently on the right. Their trails interlaced into a lattice of do not end yet. The heart stuttered. The Devourer bucked. A tide of absence rose like a wave to drown the lattice. Sonic pushed harder, bleeding color, feet beating 1-2, until the number felt like a promise wrung from bone. More, Pietro said. Higher. Sonic closed his eyes and reached past the body that had always defined him. He remembered running the first loop in Green Hill simply because it existed. Joy with no scoreboard. He remembered choosing to be a shield before a punchline. He remembered the pact, the corridor, the golden second when the multiverse had trusted them to lead the dance. His aura erupted. Not blue, white. Edges sharpened into a crown of star-bright quills. Air around him ionized into a gentle storm. His sneakers kissed nothing and left possibility. Hypersonic wasn't faster because of numbers. He was faster because purpose is a fuel. Pietro felt the wave and matched it by refusing to compete. He didn't reach for faster. He reached for truer. He found the line where his love for a sister had always chosen to arrive on time or die trying, and he put his whole life on that downbeat. The air rang. Pietro's body did not glow. Time around him did, compressing, blooming, folding like origami into a power that did not push, but placed. The chrono burst. He could quench a second into a jewel and set it exactly where it was needed. Now, he said calmly, inflict one such jewel into the pendulum's path. The pendulum struck it and learned restraint. The heart found a meter. The devourer stopped bucking and began to sway, not hunting, listening. Outside, the newborn world felt the pressure ease. The continuum whispered across the seam. Their beat reaches me. Hold, Sonic said. And the word shook the dark like laughter at a funeral that finally becomes victory. But hunger does not unlearn itself in one chorus. Non-time surged from deeper chambers. Chronovores unreeled in graceful arcs. Not to eat the lattice, but to sing against it. Anti-harmonies, subtraction turned into melody. The devourer learned its first counterpoint, and for an instant Sonic felt the heart veer towards zero again. We need a third, Pietro said. A bridge, as if it had been waiting. Oris's tone braided through their wrists and bloomed into the chamber, soft law. The seed's pulse far behind them thickened into we share this beat. The continuum, humble and brave, added a shy harmony. I am learning. Sonic laughed, breathless and joyful and stubborn. Family band, let's go. They changed the song. Not louder, wider. Sonic's hyper trail relaxed into arcs that left room between notes. Pietro's placements opened micro rests where a chronovore could hesitate long enough to discover curiosity. Oris poured in a syncopation that preferred mercy. The continuum steadied a ground tone that asked permission instead of assuming ownership. The devourer leaned in. One serpent brushed the lattice and did not bite. Another approached a pause and coiled there, tasting not ending like an unfamiliar spice. The pendulum's swing found home just shy of zero, then away, then back. The clock heart began to beat with the pact instead of through it. Sonic cried out, not in pain but in relief, so sharp it had teeth. It's working! Pietro smiled with the corners of his mouth. The parts you only notice when the world has earned them. For now, the devourer spoke for the first time. It was the Chronarch's voice, wrecked and echoed, hollowed and heavy with apology it did not understand. Stopping, stops hurt, stopping, stops all. Sonic slowed without breaking the pattern and looked up into the unlight. Stopping stops joy too. Joy is brief. Yeah, Sonic said softly. That's why it's worth time. Pietro added, let endings serve beginnings, not erase them. I am hungry. Sonic's grin turned feral and kind. Then we starve you of meals that shouldn't be eaten and feed you a job. They gave hunger a vocation. Pietro took chronoburst gems and set them at the mouths of dead corridors, places that had already become less. Here, he said, consume only what has chosen to end. Sonic ran sweeps that pushed fallen moments toward those mouths, shepherding what was ready with a runner's tenderness. No snatching, he told the dark, only honoring. Oris described a law small enough to be decent. The eater may dine on completed time, never on beating hearts. The Continuum promised to guard the border. The devourer tasted the offered diet. It trembled. I remember keeping. The warden, he loved a rule more than he loved its reason. Then learn the reason, Pietro said, and choose. The heart steadied. The pendulum's arc narrowed to a poet's compromise. All at once the chamber spun, not with force but with outcome. Lanes widened behind them. Corridors ahead committed to being corridors. The serpents unreeled and took stations along the walls, guides rather than mouths. The devourer's edges softened into a horizon. Outside, the newborn world stood up straighter. Grasses that had flattened rose and looked very pleased with themselves. The seed of rhythm laughed in green. Sonic sagged, hands on knees, hyper light dwindling to blue. Pietro let the chronoburst dissipate with a sigh that admitted he was human again. Sweat became a thing that existed. They were grinning like criminals who had robbed extinction and tipped well. The devourer tried one last protest, more habit than hunger. I will fail. Yep, Sonic said. So will we. That's the rhythm. Teach me to stop where mercy begins. Pietro nodded once. Every ending you take will leave a door behind. Eat and open. Never eat the door. Silence. Then door. Yes. The chamber brightened to almost night. In the far walls, the first doors appeared. Small, honest after doors, where finished seconds could walk out into memory instead of being chewed into nothing. The Continuum, unable to help itself, sniffled across all frequencies. You made a hospice for time. Sonic wiped an eye he would never admit was wet. We made a kitchen that served soup. The devourer settled, vast, patient, a worker among necessary deaths. The unlight loosened. They turned toward the mouth they had entered and found it was now a gate. Behind it, the newborn world waited with a sunrise so proud of itself it had to keep looking at its own reflection. They stepped through. The hills cheered in grass. The river practiced sparkle. The seed beat 1-2, and the world answered 1-2 with a syncopated and. A third heart, the devourer's, kept time underneath like a bass drum that had learned restraint. Sonic flopped onto the hilltop and spread his arms. We didn't close the mouth. We taught it manners, Pietro said, sitting beside him. He looked older, in exactly the right age. For a little while, the three hearts, seed, continuum, devourer, found a common pulse. Oris's helix hummed a contented grace note. The wind finally committed to being wind. It couldn't last. Across the stitched sky, reality remembered an unfinished debt. The newborn multiverse shivered from seam to seam, then aligned toward a single direction none of the three hearts had chosen. The Continuum spoke first, voice tight. A pressure approaches from all arenas. The walls remember each other. Oris whispered, the convergence. Sonic sat up. Pietro was already standing. Far above, doorways opened across 1,000 horizons. Light from other stories bled through. Red, gold, midnight, myth. Figures moved at the thresholds. Capes and armor. Gods and mortals. Legends and problems. No invasion. A gathering. Pietro watched patterns intersect, eyes going distant in the way of men who can see the shape of storms. Final lap. Sonic flexed his hands. His grin came back with teeth, faith, and a lot of practice at getting up. Then we give them the best race they've ever seen. The Continuum steadied itself like a conductor raising both hands to an orchestra that suddenly knows the song. Runners, I will hold as long as you run. The Devourer spoke from the gate, solemn. I will keep doors. Oris sang a single note that tasted like courage. Sonic offered Pietro a fist. Pietro bumped it, and the motion made a promise. They faced the opening horizons, an arena made of all arenas, and breathed together once. Ready? Sonic asked. Pietro's smile was small, lethal, and kind. Always on one. They stepped. Blue met silver and made white. The world behind them kept its beat. The path ahead wrote itself as they took it, and time, watching two anomalies choose its side again, decided to live long enough to see how the story ends. Every horizon turned into a doorway. Not rips, not wounds, invitations. From each gate spilled a color the newborn world had never invented. Crimson forged in battlefields where gods learned humility, violet from galaxies that prayed with engines, green from jungles where myths hunted science. Sound arrived next. Marches, hymns, screams, laughter, layering into a single dissonant chord. Sonic whistled low. Guess word got out. Pietro studied the pattern above. The gates weren't random. They pulsed in time with the three hearts they just tuned. Seed, Continuum, Devourer. It's not invasion, he said. It's synchronization. Every timeline that ever ran alone just realized it can keep rhythm with the rest. The Continuum's voice rippled through the air like wind remembering to be kind. The arenas remember, each world still holds a fragment of competition, a duel that sought meaning. Now they seek reunion. Sonic's grin tilted. Multiversal jam session. Cool. Unstable. The Continuum corrected softly. Each song believes itself the melody. A new tremor answered. The gates widened until they touched, forming a colossal ring around the planet. Lightning of mixed realities arced between them. From within the glow stepped champions. Kratos with chains that smoked memory. Diana, armor etched in forgotten alphabets. Luffy grinning like chaos made flesh. Iron Man's armor, humming equations beside Saitama's blank calm. Hundreds more, heroes, monsters, anomalies, every story that had ever refused stillness. They arrived not to fight, but because fighting was how they prayed. Sonic blinked. Okay, that's officially crowded. Pietro's tone stayed level. We started this symphony. We conduct or we drown. The sky folded into tears of energy. Each champion carried their universe's rhythm. When they moved, the world around them shifted tempo. Kratos' anger thickened gravity. Luffy's laughter thinned it. Saitama's sigh reset it to zero. The Continuum strained, trying to hold measure lines between incompatible beats. Containment failing, it warned. Harmony diverging into combat protocols. Sonic cracked his knuckles. Then we give them a downbeat. He leapt from the hilltop. Blue trail blazing a circle through the air. Pietro blurred beside him, silver writing the measure marks. Where their lines crossed, a ripple spread. White tempo, the soundless click of two hearts syncing an orchestra. The effect was instant. Movements across the battlefield began to align. Kratos' swing landing precisely where Wonder Woman raised her shield, the clash resolving into thunder instead of shrapnel. Lightning chased rhythm instead of randomness. Sonic shouted, "Follow the beat, not the ego." For a heartbeat it worked. Then the ring cracked. A fissure opened between worlds. From its edge poured anti-color. The leftover hunger the Devourer had shed but never buried. It coalesced into a humanoid void. No face, just negative space shaped like inevitability. The Continuum gasped. Residual directive, Chronarch 0. The fragment that refused mercy. The void spoke in everyone's language at once. Order is obedience, dissonance is decay. Return to silence. Every champion turned involuntarily towards the voice. The air thickened with command. Even gods trembled when meaning itself told them to stop. Sonic staggered. His heartbeat slipped half a beat behind the seed's pulse. Pietro reached out, grabbed his shoulder, and poured rhythm through touch. "Don't listen to the pause," he said. "Run through it." They accelerated together. Blue and silver lances cut across the assembled armies, scattering the paralysis like wind through fog. Heroes blinked, regained footing, shouted battle cries that turned into music. But Zero wasn't still. It moved like subtraction given limbs, cutting through time signatures. Every swing deleted a bar of the universal score. Pietro's jaw clenched. He's erasing the staff itself. "Then we ride on air," Sonic said. They dove at Zero. Impact, like colliding with the memory of gravity. Zero caught Sonic's punch mid-arc, and for a moment the blue blur froze frame by frame. Pietro blurred in, slashing the chrono key across the void's torso. No wound, just a pause, then regeneration backward. "You cannot revise origin," Zero intoned. "Every measure ends in rest." Sonic spat dust and laughed anyway. "Yeah, but rest isn't silence, it's setup." He spun faster than sense, drawing loops that caught fragments of other fighters' auras, gold, crimson, emerald, braiding them into his trail. Pietro recognized the pattern and timed his own path to weave between them. Together, they sketched a sigil the size of continents, a new meter no architect had ever sanctioned. The Continuum felt it and roared approval. Tempo Omni activated. The world exploded into harmony. Kratos' roar became percussion. Diana's sword strikes rang as brass. Luffy's laughter filled the treble clef. Saitama's punch provided the drop. The Ring of Worlds turned into a literal symphony, each motion, each strike a note in something vast. And at its center, Sonic and Pietro, conducted by example, drawing arcs that taught gods how to dance. Zero screamed, a feedback loop of cancellation. Where its voice touched the song, notes died, but every death birthed echo, and every echo rejoined the beat. The Devourer's old bass pulse rumbled beneath, now protector rather than predator, chewing through the silence trying to return. Still, Zero advanced. It reached toward the seed of rhythm glowing far below, intent on smothering the heartbeat that united all. Sonic dropped from the sky in a streak of white. Pietro followed, faster than cause and effect. They hit the ground together above the seed, knees flexing into impact, aura flaring. The heartbeat faltered, then synced to them. 1-2, 1-2, the entire multiverse inhaled on beat. Sonic whispered, "Ready? Always on one," Pietro said. They ran straight at Zero. Every hero, monster, and machine saw them go and felt timing ripple through their bones. Movements everywhere adjusted half a breath sooner, half a thought sharper. The orchestra of realities fell perfectly into phase. Sonic's hyperform bloomed again, feathers of light fanning out behind. Pietro's chronoburst glittered like crystallized seconds. Together they drew a line that was neither path nor weapon. Invitation. Zero struck to erase it. They met at the midpoint. White engulfed everything. Inside, the brightness was quiet. Not absence, potential. Sonic floated, eyes open. Pietro beside him, steady as a clock, waiting for permission to tick. Zero was there too, shrinking, unraveling into questions. Why move if stillness is peace? Pietro answered first. Because peace isn't proof, it's permission. Why sing if silence is pure? Sonic grinned softly. Because silence gets lonely? The void hesitated, folding inward like a hand, realizing it can hold instead of crush. Its edges dimmed to transparency. For a moment, it was just a shimmer, a rest note finally accepting its place in the score. Then let there be measure. It dissolved into light. The gates around the planet closed one by one, their energies rethreading into constellations. The champions of countless worlds found themselves back home, each carrying a faint hum that wasn't there before, the pulse of shared tempo. Kratos knelt beside an altar and felt rhythm in his heartbeat. Diana laughed under a new sunrise. Luffy stretched and shouted that adventure had better music now. Saitama blinked and wondered why the breeze kept time with his footsteps. The ring vanished. Only Sonic and Pietro remained above the seed, surrounded by a sky-learning calm. The Continuum's voice arrived like applause, trying not to wake a sleeping child. Convergence complete, harmony achieved. I hear breathing between beats. Is that life? Sonic lay back on the grass. Yeah, don't fix it. Pietro sat, gaze on the horizon, where a new sun rehearsed its debut. We built a metronome for gods. And for me? The Continuum asked. You're part of the band, Sonic said. Just don't try to solo. Laughter rolled across dimensions. Oris's tone fluttered once, warm and weary. The proof now contains love. Design may rest. The Devourer deep below rumbled an afterbeat that promised restraint. For the first time since time learned to count, everything kept time together. Sonic closed his eyes. Think this is the end? Pietro smirked. Ends are pauses. We taught the universe that. They listened to the cosmos exhale. 1, 2, 1, 2, and felt the next adventure tuning its strings beyond the measure. The world had learned to breathe. No storms, no fractures, only rhythm. The steady 1, 2, 1, 2 that the seed had taught creation. The Continuum drifted above it all, not as a warden now, but as a sky, transparent and content to let light pass through. On the hill where everything began, the grass bowed in a quiet wind. 2 trails of color, one blue, one silver, crossed there and stopped halfway through the curve, as if the rest of the line had decided to live in memory. Sonic watched the sunrise. Pietro watched the seconds. It's holding, Pietro said. Harmony stable. Even the Devourer keeps time. Sonic kicked at a pebble that had no business being that dramatic in a legend. Feels weird, huh? No crisis, no countdown, just now. The Continuum's voice drifted down, gentle. Now is the longest thing that has ever existed. Pietro smiled faintly. So this is eternity, a tempo slow enough to notice. Sonic's grin softened. We made it sound nice. They stood a while, listening to the sound of a newborn universe finding its groove. The wind carried echoes, fragments of laughter, sword clash, footsteps, remixes of every world that had joined the convergence. The multiverse was singing itself back together. Guess they don't need us anymore, Sonic said quietly. Pietro looked at him, head tilted. You say that like it's sad. Maybe it is. No, Pietro said. It's rhythm. You start, you step back, you let the rest play. Sonic thought about that, then chuckled. Man, you're the first guy I met who makes destiny sound like jazz. Above them, the Continuum brightened slightly. Runners. The balance endures, but your resonance remains woven through every world. Should you stay, you will become constant, motion frozen as law. Should you depart, you will become myth, motion unbound. Sonic whistled. So, retirement or legend? Pietro's eyes flicked toward the horizon. It shimmered with faint outlines of every gate they had ever crossed, open just wide enough to promise mystery. I've never been good at stillness. Sonic grinned, heartbeat already leaning forward. You thinking what I'm thinking? Yes, Pietro said, and you're late. Blue lightning burst across the valley. Silver followed, thin and perfect. They raced without destination, only direction, towards the place where speed becomes song. The Continuum watched them go. Oris whispered from the high harmonics. They run again. They cannot help it, the Continuum replied. That is why time forgives them. The world blurred beneath the runners. Each step cracked open a window to a past they had already saved. The vault of origins gleaming in reverent silence. The devourer curled around its new diet of endings. The champions of the convergence, remembering that war could rhyme with wonder. The multiverse bowed, not to heroes, but to tempo. Wind tore across Sonic's face, cool and endless. He glanced sideways at Pietro, saw the faint smile hidden behind precision. Hey, Sonic shouted over the rush. Ever think about stopping? Pietro didn't answer at first, then, no, but I think about arriving. What's the difference? One leaves you empty, Pietro said. The other leaves you full. They laughed. A sound that became thunder, then melody, then something smaller and warmer than either. Their combined trail burned white now, not from power, but from peace. Beyond the edges of creation, where even the Continuum's light dared not linger, the path thinned into blue mist. Ahead lay nothing. No geometry, no law, just the soft hum of possibility. The kind of place where stories rest between tellings. Sonic slowed. Pietro matched him. This it? Sonic asked. End of the track? Maybe, Pietro said. Maybe the start of one we don't need to map. They stood side by side at the lip of forever. Behind them, universes spun like records. Ahead, potential waited like a held breath. Sonic reached out his hand. Pietro clasped it. Their joined grip glowed, blue and silver folding into tranquil white. Let's give the next beat a chance, Sonic said. On one, Pietro answered. They stepped forward, not running, just arriving. The light rose to meet them. The Continuum felt the instant of departure as a missing heartbeat. It rippled through creation, turning into legend before silence could claim it. The runners have gone beyond, Oris said softly. Their frequency echoes in every dawn. They taught even stillness to keep rhythm, the Continuum replied. That is enough. From the hill where the seed had first pulsed, a tree sprouted. Slender, silver-barked, leaves glowing cobalt at the edges. Its branches moved slightly even when there was no wind. Travelers from future epochs would hear whispers beneath it, stories that started. Once two lights outran the end. Every so often, when worlds aligned just right, lightning would flash in paired streaks across the sky. One blue, one silver, and clocks everywhere would hesitate for half a breath, as if applauding. Far outside time, where memory grows roots instead of wings, two figures stood in a field that wasn't a place. The grass was made of moments. The air hummed in 1-2, 1-2. Pietro lay on his back, arms folded behind his head. Sonic kicked clouds into rhythm. So, Sonic said, think they'll remember us? Pietro smirked. They already have. Legends happen backward. Sonic chuckled. Good. Means we get to be the ending and the start. They looked up at a sky unpainted yet, a blank staff waiting for new notes. Somewhere distant, faint but certain, came the sound of footsteps. Other runners, other stories, picking up the tempo. Pietro closed his eyes. They'll need room, Sonic nodded. Then we make it. He raised one hand. Blue sparks spun upward, carving a path through unlight. Pietro added silver lines, clean and even. Together they drew a spiral, an exit, an entrance, a melody left open on purpose. When they were done, the field shone like sunrise remembering itself. "Ready?" Sonic asked, though they both knew the answer. "Always on one," Pietro said again, smiling. They ran. Not toward battle, not away from duty, but into the curve of their own echo, laughing as the blue and silver light folded together until it became something no color had dared to dream. The Continuum, listening from all worlds at once, recorded the moment not as an end, but as a tempo mark, echo eternal. And in the pause that followed, time itself exhaled.